Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new round of the NXTGEN, or what you know and love and call as the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship. Of course, it is Season 3, and today marks round 4 of 10 as we've made our way to the United States for the series' first ever street circuit race. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in downtown Long Beach in the state of California for what is the Long Beach Street Circuit, and well, what a circuit we have in store. With its extended straights, its multitude of corners, and its tight walls ever encroaching upon the circuit, it means it's going to be a completely different flavour of racing compared to what our drivers are used to, as we exchange the wide open runoff areas or the expanses of grass from most of our circuits to the tight walls that surround the circuit, and indeed a road surface that is finer. And with that, could we see some drivers revel in the change of scenery, or others fall apart as they find contact with the wall? All that and more is to be found out in this series, of course, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport. And to get ready to go racing today, let's take a look at our schedule times in British Summer Time. That's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1. 1 UTC +1. In approximately what will be 19 minutes time, we make our way into the qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration with all our drivers out on the circuit, and when we do have an overall gathering of approximately what is 40 drivers taking to the circuit today, it is going to be crowded, it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and you can count on one thing that comes with that. It is going to be difficult to set the ultimate qualifying lap, but those who do may find themselves achieving great track position going into the race, and it may bode very well for them when they do indeed go racing. But then after that, we go to our first race of the day, and that'll be the sprint race number 1, 13 laps in length. All 3 races, of course, sprint races of the same length, and that'll be at approximately 8:45 this evening. All the drivers will take to the circuit and look to achieve their best possible result, as it will set them up for success in race number 2. Race number 2 will follow immediately after, albeit of a brief break of approximately 5 to 10 minutes, and we expect that to be gradually rolling through until as a 9, and then we'll take another brief break of 5 to 10 minutes before we make our way to the grid for our third and final race of the day, and of course that is the reverse grid sprint, race number 3 at approximately 10. As we get ready to go racing, of course, you'll tune in via one of 3 media platforms live for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, you could be tuning in via 2 of the official NXTGEN Racing channels, either on YouTube at youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing, alternatively on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, or alternatively, if you're more of a Twitch user, you may be tuning in via twitch.tv/TX141. And who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the season. And well, what a season it has been thus far, and we still got plenty to go. And do a change of scenery today, I can tell you one thing, it is only going to raise the level of the racing even higher. For as we can see to our calendar, we start off all the way back on the 18th of April at the Silverstone circuit in the United Kingdom, and well, we opened up on a thriller at the international layout of the circuit, focusing on the high-speed corners throughout, and well, there after that we made our way to Italy for the Imola Grand Prix circuit. In round number 2 on the 25th of April, it was a change of circumstances, with straights and chicanes being the order of the day, but most of our drivers are also getting to terms with the success ballast supply for this season, particularly our top 10 pro drivers, all finding it quite the struggle, it must be said. And in round number 3, last time out, we made our way to the North American continent, and in particular to the country of Canada for the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or Motorsport as it's known in short. And there last week, we saw the rise of many a driver, but one driver was able to stay at the top of his game despite the fact he's running maximum success ballast, was Jamie Dorey. He may have looked vulnerable on the straights, but he put together 3 absolutely brilliant results, which, as you'll see in the championship stand shortly, have kept him in the lead. But also the rise of Mikey Doble after a difficult opening 2 rounds, finally getting some major points on the board, and we're looking forward now to round number 4. But many a driver there finding success in their own relative regard, and Long Beach today, it being the 9th of May, is going to continue that challenge for our drivers. After today, we'll then make our way to Germany for the Nürburgring GP Strecker circuit, albeit the cut down version will be running the touring car version that's normally seen with the Deutsche Touring Car Championships, and that'll be on the 16th of May, and then after that we'll be taking our mid-season break. From round number 5 to round number 6 there's a 2-week gap, and when we do return for round number 6, of course we go back to the United Kingdom for the one and only Alton Park Island circuit, and that'll be on the 30th of May, and no touring car calendar is complete without Alton Park, and that's why it's there on the calendar, after which we then make our way back to the United States of America for the 2nd time this season in round number 7 at the Circuit of the Americas on the 6th of June. Well, that's going to be an interesting one with a wide open road surface and the wide variety of corners that come with it. Albeit we're going to be running what is the eastern layout of the circuit, if my memory serves me correctly. And then in round number 8, we make our way all the way down under to Australia for the Sandown Home of Horsepower circuit. And we'll normally associate with V8 supercars. Well, let's keep you rest assured in the fact that Sandown is going to be very different in touring cars, in the fact it's 2 short straights, or drag strips if you will, connected by a series of corners. And all our drivers are very excited for round number 8 on the 13th of June. And will the number 13 unlucky for some, but will it be lucky for others? And in the penultimate round of the season, we make our way back to the United States of America for a classic TC America circuit of the Sonoma Point Raceway, and that's right on the northern tip of California, of course, just ahead of San Francisco, and that'll be on the 20th of June, and then we bring it all to a close. We'll visit back to Germany to the Hockenheim Ring circuit there in Baden-Württemberg on the 27th of June. We bring the calendar and the curtain down, and who will come home? Our champions overall in the Pro and the Pro-Am categories, as well as our team's champions. We've got a long way to find out that question, but the result from today could go a long way in answering it. But speaking of the championships then, we take a look at the overall championship firstly. Remind you of the Drivers' Championship after 3 rounds of racing, and we can see here Jamie Dorey leading the way on 100 points, 17 clear of Andrea Romi, and well, for Dorey, it was all about damage limitation last time out in Canada, and he was able to absolutely deliver on that promise, when Andrea Romi as well picking up a great set of performances, and therefore moving into P2. Martin Shirley only a further 2 points off, and right now Martin Shirley definitely showing his aptitude with regards to the racing from circuit to circuit for RD Simsport, with Francisco Milo and Mikey Doble completing the top 5, both on 76 points there, but Doble behind Milo based on result countback. Damon Mulqueen is in P6, and Mulqueen, of course, a driver who's continued to rise to prominence, and indeed with that now on 71 points, 2 clear of Adam Delmont, with Joseph Doble, Sam Smith and Andrew Pike completing your top 10, but Andrew Pike only inside the top 10 by a single point, with Alan McCain right on his heels there in P11 as the best of the rest. But the iRacing Esports driver will not be able to stay complacent in the fact that John Higgins Jr. is right there ready to pounce, only a further point behind, and it's Daniel Homer 2 points off there, and the Bright Esports driver again looking for a good run of form. We have Wayne Douglas and Marcello Reyes completing the top 15, with Reese Watt and Rafael Lobato both on 40 points, P16, P17, and it's Marco Benatelli, Gavin Garner and Michael Lees who complete your top 20. From the 27-point Michael Lees, we head to P21, which is held by Dorey Rafaeto, who's a further 5 points behind, 1 point clear of Isaac Doble, and Linus Brostrom there in P23, 1 point clear of Alex Meredith, who in turn has 2 points over Paul Scott. Interesting enough, both Linus Brostrom and Alex Meredith picking up some better results over the last couple of rounds, and they're looking to try and rise high in the championship today, and they may be feeling good given the fact we've seen some of their practice times, and particularly for Alex Meredith, he's been looking one of the fastest out there at Long Beach thus far. P26, Luke Jones ahead of Lee Horn, with Ivan Bulkamp, Bernardo Colby, and with Daniel Feder completing the top 30. Then we can see Nick Clibbins there, which should be P31. We've got a duplication of names there, with Robert Dasunik, Matthew Addy, James Manskezgow, and Massimo Boni completing your top 35. And it's Benjamin McCluskey, Jackie Chalmers, Jake Pitt, and Jonathan Coins, all yet to get points on the board. And that extends to these other drivers as well, in the form of Josh Brown, Mark Arrowsmith, Mark Sykes, Matthew Cheverton, Melvin Eckerson, who makes his debut tonight, Paolo Maniti, Sebastian Bruberg, Tom Bingham, Gabriel Yilmaz, Matthew Jolly, Costa Chatscontinentino, who's got -5 points due to post-race penalties, and minus points continues here for Dylan Flanagan, Phil McDougall, Philip Bruberg, Chris Byram, Andrea Talasco, Daniel Fritz, and Marcello Felix. But coming from our overall standings, we then go to our Pro Championship standings, and we can see here with the points adjusted, it is Jamie Dorey who leads by 13 points over Andrea Romi, and as we said earlier, for Jamie Dorey, it was damage limitation last week, and it will be again today, given the fact he's running maximum success ballast. Rafael Lobato, meanwhile, in at P3, only 1 point off of his second place counterpart, and the rivalry there to be the one to chase down Dorey is becoming absolutely the utmost importance, but of course, will those two take shades out of one another and potentially give Dorey an opportunity to hold on to lead, given the fact that everybody else will be fighting one another for the right to pursue him. Well, Martin Shirley in the same boat there, as you can see on what is 98 points, 5 off of the top 3, and he's only got a 5-point advantage over Francisco Milo, with Mikey Doble there just outside the top 5 based on result count back, but still getting closer to his aspirations to defend his title. And there's Adam Delman, Damon Mulqueen, Marco Benatelli, and Joseph Doble who complete your top 10. And we should point out that Damon Mulqueen has been promoted from the Prime to the Pro class based on his performance in round number 3, and I think Damon Mulqueen now finding himself right home with the pros. Indeed, he's put on some absolutely spectacular performances thus far, and good luck to him on his promotion. That's the rest there in P11. That's Sam J. Smith on 76 points, 2 off the top 10, with Andrew Pike a third point behind. And then we do have John Higgins Jr., Marcello Reyes, and Wayne Douglas completing your top 15, with Daniel Homer, Alan McCain, and Gavin Garner rounding off the pro standings. And then come to the Pro-Am class meanwhile, and we can see here it's Isaac Doble who leads the way on 97 points, 2 clear of Reese Watt. But what's very interesting is how these two have come to prominence in the last round. They both picked up a very good set of results at Millspot, and therefore they've been able to break away to a small degree from the pack. But indeed, neither driver's going to want to back down here, and they'll want to try and carry on that momentum, because they only do have what is an 8-point gap to Michael Lees in P3 behind. But in return, Michael Lees has the pressure of Linus Brostrom and Bernardo Colbe, only 3 points apiece between the trio, and there's a further 3 points to Lee Horn in P6, with Robert Dasunik then on the clear 14-point gap to Lee Horn, but continuing to build that progress in his hunt after a difficult start to the season. He really came alive at Mosport, and he'll be hoping to continue that. Luke Jones in P8 on 62 points, 3 clear of Paul Scott, and then Matthew Addy completes your top 10. Nick Clibbins in P11, and he's ahead of Dorey Rafaeta, with Daniel Fadder, Alex Meredith, and Ivan Bolkamp completing your top 15. And we can see just outside the top 15 by 2 points Jake Pitt, with Matthew Cheverton and Chris Byram there, also exchanging blows in the battle for P17 on the right to chase down Pitt. And there is Benjamin McCluskey and James Manskezgow who complete your top 20. From the 20-point James Manskezgow, we make our way to P21, only a point off. That's Massimo Boni, who is ahead of Mark Sykes by 7 points, and Sykes still trying to find that run of form, which of course he did start off the early portion of the season with, but it has lost him over the last couple of rounds, but he's looking to come back tonight. And then Marcello Fix in P23 ahead of Phil McDougall, with Jonathan Collins at P25 on 5 points, and Josh Brown, the last driver to have points on the board, with 2 in P26. Yet to score any points, Jackie Chalmers, Jesmond Tan, Mark Aerosmith, Melvin Eckerson, Paolo Maniti, Sebastian Bruberg, Tom Bingham, Gabriel Yilmaz, and Matthew Jolly. And on negative points due to post-race penalties, Philip Bruberg, Costa Chancellor Antonu, Dylan Flanagan, Daniel Fritz, and Andrea Talasco. That's how the Drivers' Championship stands. Now the big question is, what about the Teams' Championship? Well, we can see here Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport continue to lead the way on 195 points to 148 in the form of Global Sim Racing. The gap now standing at 47 points, and you would argue with a gap like that, it is looking as though things are becoming ever stronger for the Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport outfit. But how will they be able to carry on today in terms of keeping those points high? That'll be their target in terms of just carrying the momentum forward and not putting a foot wrong at any point during the racing. Meanwhile, coming to eMotorsport T1 in P3, they're only 15 points off of Global Sim Racing, so the battle for P2 is definitely starting to get underway, albeit we can see then GRT Esports a further 7 points behind, with iRace Esports in P5 down 114. The iRace Esports trio, Clibbins, McCain and Smith, have been looking very reliable, but they're also quite vulnerable to the Sim Racing Collective at this point in time, with RD Sim Sports there in P7 for Martin Shirley. And then we see Sergi Fortis Racing in P8 for Dan McQueen and Phil McDougall, with the RGT Racing Team and Bright Esport completing your top 10. So in the 64-point P10 outfit of Bright Esport, we then look to P11, who are further what is 22 points behind, and that's Next Gen Racing Yellow, with JW Motorsport P12 there, and JW Motorsport having a rough start to the season in terms of their team's championship, but they are gradually starting to find their feet and build those points, with Next Gen Racing Blue P13 ahead of Cuda eMotorsports and Chemical eMotorsport. And then we do have Aztec Racing, the last team to have points on the board in P16, with Performance Link Esports, Chalmers with Flanagan Racing, and Biff, Hornet, and Epic Collective yet to score any points. But coming from the standings then to our circuit for today, where it's none other than the Long Beach Street Circuit in what is the city of Long Beach in Los Angeles County of the state of California in the United States of America. Now the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, and thank you to them of course for their wonderful circuit maps that come with an absolutely brilliant simulator. Well, this circuit map definitely does demonstrate one of the key things about this circuit is it is a very flat circuit, as is typified with street circuits, albeit not all of them are flat. You only need to look at Monaco, for example. But whereas at Monaco it's very hard to overtake, around here overtaking opportunities are plentiful if you know where to find them. And as our drivers make their way around, it's going to be this interesting contrast of very narrow corner sequences, particularly at the start lap and at the very end of the lap, versus more open corner sequences where the circuit width opens up rather dramatically, only then to become condensed back down. And as our drivers make their way through the curve start finish straight and in the run towards turn number 1, the heaviest braking zone on the circuit arguably there as they come into turn number 1 and sweep through the left-hander to charge their way into the fountain of turns 2 and 3. Nicknamed the fountain in reference to the fact it runs around the Long Beach City fountain. It's the most narrow section of the circuit, and our drivers need to be extremely careful should they try to overtake. Overtaking through there requires compliance. Get it wrong, however, and we could see quite a significant hold up in the field, and indeed if anybody gets it wrong and goes sideways through there, everybody's going to have to park up and wait for the driver to rectify themselves. But coming through turns 2 and 3 and making their way up towards 4, it's a double right hand sweeping section of 4 and 5 where the average apex speed starts to build, albeit turn number 5 a heavy off camber corner with a raised apex curve, and we could see some drivers bouncing off that and going to the outside wall. Coming out of turn number 5, they'll make their way down the short stretch up towards turn 6 and 7. The double left apex there, a single corner is broken up into 2 parts, and as they go through the left hander, they'll go over the rise and dip down to turn number 8, a sweeping right hander there where it's all about getting to the apex as soon as possible and making sure not to hit the outside tyre barrier on corner exit. Heading down the back straight and up towards turn number 9, it's going to be about overtaking opportunities there, one of the longer straights on the circuit. We'll come through turn 9 and into the extended left hander at turn number 10, where it's all about trying to avoid the understeer to get the car set up for the braking zone of the turn 11 hairpin, and another tricky situation at turn number 11. You can overtake into 11, but of course with being such a tight apex, one of the nastiest radial corners in the world, you imagine if our drivers are on the outside then a two-wide situation, they may have to stop the car before they go into the wall. But still plenty to contemplate as we look to our rules, and let's just give you a reminder of them. Setup-wise, it's a fixed setup series, where drivers are required to bring a specified setup to each and every round, as stipulated by Next Gen Racing. Driver class-wise, the classes have been finalised as of round 3, so they were finalised following the results of the Motorsport races last week, and that means if we are going to see any driver class changes, they will be by exception from this point onwards. Sprint race-wise, the Race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. The Race 2 grid shall be set based on results of race number 1, so the winner of Race 1 will be starting on pole for race number 2, and we work our way downwards. And the Race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on results of race 2, with the reversal position being drawn live from between P13 and P23. Indeed, we'll be cut into the commentary booth while we'll be shuffling the lottery balls and pulling 2 out of the bowl. We add the numbers together, And those numbers will give us a number between P13 and P23, and that's where we reverse the grid from. So if we were to draw P15, the 15th place finisher from race number 2 starts on pole for race number 3, and we work our way downwards to what is the race winner of race number 2 who starts P15, and then the 16th place finishers from race 2 onwards, well, they'll be starting exactly where they finished. Now, each driver shall have one fast repair available in each race, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount, which is 13 laps, or 30 minutes, depending on how many safety cars we do have. And to extend the rules here, race stewarding, of course, is in effect when independent race directors shall be stewarding the races for track limit infringements and deployment of the safety car. And in terms of penalties for track limit infringements, the first 3 are just warnings, and on the 4th warning, we'll be seeing a 5-second post-race time penalty. That's doubled to 10 seconds on the 5th warning, and it's escalated to a drive-through penalty on the 6th warning, and drive-through penalties must be served within 3 laps. Meanwhile, racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. And lastly, of course, to give you a reminder, we do have the success ballast in effect, and that is applied to the top 10 drivers in the overall Drivers' Championship based on the standings prior to each round, but before post-round penalties are applied. And we can see today Jamie Dorey carries the maximum ballast of 56.1 kilograms once again, and meanwhile Andrea Romi now having the second highest of 48.2 kilograms, and definitely need to get to grips with that. But meanwhile, the other end of the spectrum, we can see it there by contrast, Adam Delmont now down to 16.6 kilograms, and that's 7th place, and Andrew Pye only have 4.7 kilograms. I can imagine the Sim Racing Collective driver will definitely be looking to try and achieve a good result or good set of results here today, given that the lack of success ballast. But plenty more of that to come, of course. But I know what you're all here for. You're here for the racing rather than the rules. And as we look back to our live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, our drives all getting set now, as we do see James Holman making his way out of what is their turn at number 8 and down towards 9 he goes, and joining the RD Simsport team for this series. Of course, a regular for RD Simsport. If you've ever seen him racing in any major official series or indeed league on iRacing, you see him fly the colours high for RD Simsport, and I've had the pleasure of seeing him race in touring car in a number of series, and I can tell you he is a very capable driver at the helm of any touring car, but particularly his Honda Civic Type R, as he makes his way out to turn at number 11, and well, he'll be in the Pro class. And how can you tell who's in which class on the timing tower? Well, the simple way to do so, if they've got a green sash against their name, that means they are part of the Pro class, and if they've got a purple-pink sash, such as Bernardo Colbe has, as you can see Colbe making his way down towards turn at number 1 here, and Fred, that means they are in the Pro class. But welcome to James Holman, and we do have one other newcomer for today, and we mentioned his name earlier. We'll see if we can find him out on circuit currently, but I don't think we can. I think he's actually in the pit lane at this moment in time, and that is Melvin Eckerson. And well, in fact, we do see him there in the Bright Esports Audi, and well, he's looking ready to go in the Audi RS3, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on today as well. But with our drivers almost all set here in 2 minutes to go before we head into the racing, we have had a couple of class demotions and promotions, and we can tell you a little bit about those as well. And those do include, of course, Damon Mulqueen, who we talked about earlier on, has been promoted from Prime to Pro. As you can see here, the number 42 driver making his way on through for Synergy Fortis Racing in the Hyundai Elantra. And the 42 driver, of course, feeling very ready to go. Absolutely raring after his great results in the opening 3 rounds. We're expecting plenty more for him today, albeit he's now into contender with some success ballast in the car, and that may just shake things up for him a little bit in terms of the pace he brings to the table. We've also got with Alan McCain, who's moved from Prime to Pro. And speaking of Alan McCain, well, is he out on circuit at the moment? Yes, he is. And here is the iRacing Esports Elantra driver as he comes through in the 2-1-2. Although I think he's got there was Mikey Dole tucked in very close behind, and they made the way through turn number 5 and up towards 6. McCain having a bit of a knock to the wall there, as we've got a car just parked up in the middle of the racing line. Not quite sure who that is, but they've decided just to put the car there inconveniently. And then we also do have the demotion of Sebastian Bruberg, who's moved from the Pro to the Pro class, but I do not believe that Bruberg is in attendance today, unless I'm mistaken. We have Philip Bruberg, but I don't think we have his brother here with us, although I could be wrong. We'll try and get verification on that. But as a result, we do have those demotions, and we also do have one other newcomer to introduce, somebody who we did not mention earlier on, and that is also Michael Kurtler, who's going to be a guest in the Prime class today, and I believe he's in the pit lane. And there is the privateer as he's parked up at the moment, albeit our camera angles making him look a little bit camera shy, but he's going to be racing in the number 50 Audi RS3, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on here. I believe he's only partaking in this round, but we may see him in Season 4. But of course, we do welcome drivers, even if they just want to take part in one round. It is cleared, of course, with the administrators for the series, but those looking to dip their toes and thinking of whether they're coming back for the next season. But meanwhile, a stalwart of the season, of course, from Season 2, it's Joseph Double for Double Sim Racing as he makes his way across the timing line. And well, speaking of timing, ladies and gentlemen, an hour has passed in terms of this practice session. The checker flag is out, and it's time for our drivers to make the way into the qualifying session as Michael Leeson finishes his final practice lap, and well, the next lap he turns will be in anger. But as they do get ready to go, all the drivers absolutely absolutely itching to go racing. And with that, it's now go, go, go for qualifying. 15 minutes, lights out and away we go. And well, who is going to come away with pole position come the end of it? Of course, it is going to get very crowded on the circuit very quickly. And as we do see Sam Smith making his way on out, everyone will be frantically dashing away to the end of the pit lane. And we can understand, because they'll all want track position as soon as possible. They'll want clear air for their qualifying laps. If they don't have clear air, they might pick up a little bit of a tow, and it could be convenient at certain points, but it does look like a bit of a traffic jam at the moment as they all make the way on down. And while we do load our circuit map back up in the top right corner of the screen, apologies for needing to refresh the overlay, and I do believe there we have some drivers making their way back to the pit lane, including Sam Smith, deciding that he wants to wait until everybody else has gone out, because you can just see how crowded it's getting as we do look here to Reese Watt in the Audi RS3 for JW Motorsport going through turn number 1, will be able to wait his turn and going to park up there for a brief moment behind what is, I believe, the car Linus Grosjean as he comes on through the fountain section of turns 2 and 3. Beautiful look in the fountain, but I can tell you one thing, it does get very scrappy through there with drivers trying to go too wide, and we hope they can keep it clean as best as possible. But as we do see our drivers getting set for their first qualifying laps, we do say hello to a good number of you in the official chats, and don't be shy, feel free to say hi with you in the YouTube, the Facebook, alternatively the Twitch chat. We can see all 3 of them, and we say hello there to Matt Coleman in the YouTube chat. It says Team Stub are here to watch this exciting race. Glad to have you with us, Matt. And also Alistair Kirk there, who says can't wait to see James Holman racing tonight, and Matt Coleman the same. They should be good from James Holman. We look forward to seeing how Holman definitely does get on. We also say hello there to Handsome Stu, and also to what is that? I do believe at Pullman at 250, also to H-Bomb at 69, and also we do have Scullion, and I think there's a bit of a conversation about Mario Kart versus sim racing at the moment, and well, I'm not going to throw a red shell into that conversation. You're very happy to keep on debating it, so we should keep it civil, folks, and nobody launches the aforementioned and much dreaded blue shell. But from blue shells to cars that are blue on their paint, we see Jose Dole making his way through turn number 10 and into 11. You can just see how they're all crowding up as they come through the turn 11 hairpin and go to their first flying laps, and some drivers being impeded there just by coming in a bit too close, and we're having to wait as they all concertina on through, go on to their first laps. Of course, picking up a bit of the tow down the start from the straight is always beneficial, and also that run from turn 8 to turn number 9 can be helpful, but for the most part of the lap, you do want clear air around here. You don't want the understeer that's invoked, particularly through turns 1 through to 5. That's where the understeer can really catch you out, particularly on cold tyres and cold brakes. We saw drivers leaving the pit lane, and Gabriel Yilmaz has just made his way out, so it is a circuit that's still being populated with cars, and currently we do have a grand total, I believe it's 40 drivers in attendance, so it's absolutely packed out here. And meanwhile, we do look to John Higgins Jr. as Father John Higgins in the YouTube chat, who says good evening, and well, we do look forward to seeing how your son gets on at John as Junior makes his way in towards that turn number 4 currently. And well, we definitely do hope that everyone keeps their cool around the street course, because unlike other circuits, they've not got any runoff areas around here, or the runoff areas are so limited that you may as well say they're negligible. As we also do say hello to Rob Sutherland, and also we do have there, I believe, John Meredith, who's cheering on his son Alex Meredith, and we also have Catherine Meredith, I believe, the mother of Alex Meredith. So we've got the Meredith family tuning in full force. And well, speaking of Alex Meredith, here he is. He makes his way to the timeline in what is one of the Chemical E Motorsport machines. The Elantra driver coming on through and showing a lot of maturity in his rookie season. He's definitely been very mature in terms of the interviews we've had afterwards, and demonstrating. And whilst it hasn't always worked out, he's always looking forward to the next one. And all those initial lap times coming in, and with the lap here being 1.5 minutes, but everyone really taking their time trying to find their way into the order, it does mean the laps are going to be limited in supply. In an ideal world, they'll get about 6 to 7 laps in, but of course, how many of those will be compromised, or how many of them will they be able to actually execute at full force? But as we do see Meredith making his way through turn at number 5, we look from him to what is Marco Benatelli, as Benatelli makes his way on down towards turn number 8, and that downhill drop there, it's a very gradual drop off of the peak as he makes his way on through. But of course, there with the fact that the corner does feel a little bit off camber, it means you have to be careful in terms of how speed you carry on through. And a number of drivers in the practice session did have shunts with the wall there, just trying to carry too much speed too early on. But as we do see Benatelli coming through turn number 9 up towards 10, the left into the right of the hairpin of 11. Well, the GRT Motorsport machine now getting set to complete its first flying lap. And what's it going to be here as he comes on through? He gets the car notched up nicely, and we are just waiting for that time. And we'll get on board with other drivers very soon as well to take you around a lap of Long Beach in a touring car. But as Benatelli comes across the timeline, currently unranked, What's it going to be now? He goes P3 on a 28.844. A nice lap there from Benatelli. Jamie Dorey moves to P2 on ways a 128.680. Despite the success balance making that car work, but meanwhile other drivers going towards the end of their laps currently. Well, we do have what is Reese Watt making his way out the final corner, and we jump on board here with the Audi Sport JW Motorsport machine as he heads around for a lap of Long Beach. So keep an eye on the dashboard in the bottom right hand corner of your screen if you want to follow his gears and his speed. Charging through at the long straight, albeit curved and down towards turn number 1. Got a bit of clear track at the moment. Looks at his brake mark on his right hand side. You can see that the 500 board starts off the sequence of braking at the 300 board, coming all the way down a third gear, clutching over the apex curve there, straightening the steering as he makes way into the fountain. Brakes nice and early, about 100 metres from corner apex, rides the curve in there of the fountain as he comes through for a. Bring the car over to left for turn number 4 on the region of going up to fourth gear, but stays in third, and then goes up to fourth board, downshifting the third once again for turn number 5. Uses all the road width as he now makes his way up towards turn 6 and 7 and into the braking zone. He gets ready to go and braking at the 200 board, going all the way down a third gear. Nice wide exit there. You can really power out the corner. You don't need to be shy about blasting it as he makes way over the ridge and over to the left hand side to break his way into turn at number 8. Deceptive corner. You can see how tight it is between the apex wall and the exit wall, and that's where you've got to go for a very late apex to open the corner up for yourself. But now making his way down the back straight. This is where the Audi will feel strong. It's on the straight, but in that opening sector you'll notice how it's struggling on the gearing, and now down the gearbox to third gear, braking at 250 metres from the right hander at turn number 9, heading into turn number 10, the long left hander. Just balance the car, balance the throttle, keep it over to the left, let the car just gradually lift before going hard on the brakes then to the fountain, and we'll tuck in it right behind his fellow teammate from JW Motorsport as they make their way up towards the start finish line. And for what's it going to be this time as he powers his way out the gearbox here? Well, he has gone purple in subsector 3. He's currently P10. He moves to P4. That's second in what is the Prime class. And well, as he makes way down right now, fastest Prime out there at the moment is currently your provisional pole sitter. It is Andrea Talasco, as we see Talasco absolutely flying high, 1.5 tenths faster than anybody else. And I think the Audi RS3 driver definitely finding a perfect lap out there. Meanwhile, Damon Mulqueen, well, he's responding quite well to the fact he's in the pro class now, in the fact he's currently P2, 1.5 tenths off of the pole lap, but he's still got more out there as Mulqueen is Benjamin McCluskey goes P2. And do keep in mind that with the success ballast around here, we shouldn't be shy of potentially seeing some primes absolutely excel in qualifying, because they don't normally run success ballast compared to the pros, so it does mix up the order naturally, and that's exactly what the success ballast was designed to do in terms of these qualifying sessions and going into the races. But we clear the halfway point in this qualifying session, still another 7.5 minutes to go, and so far it's relatively calm before the storm as Alan McCain for iRacing Esports goes P2 and Pole Pro with 28.330, and into the braking zone he goes here for turn at number 1. And as he comes on through the left hander, well, he's now got the company of what I do believe is number 27 car, his teammate Sam Smith in front of him, as we see a car parked up there on the run through the fountain and getting itself back up to speed. I believe that might be one of the next gen racing Hondas, as we're trying to understand who that was specifically. But meanwhile, driver on an improvement. Here's the JW Motorsport driver Luke Jones. He's leading Reese Watt around, and as they come across the line, Jones currently P34, he moves to P27, well now for P28 and the 29.091. But what's very interesting as well is look at the delta in the lap times from P1 to P30 currently. It's 1.1 seconds. That's how close it is, and we thought it might be a bit different here with the street circuit. Given the fact in motorsport we saw the top 20 separated by what, 0.6 of a second, but here currently the top 20 is separated by less than half a second. This is how close it is in qualifying, and well, it is all going to come down to fine margins. Circuit still being rubbered in, of course, by our drivers, but let's take a look at that weather for you to give you an idea of what the conditions are like today. As you can see on the right hand side of your screen, well, currently it's 27 degrees centigrade ambient. It is a warm day all along the west coast of the USA currently, and in terms of that track temperature, 50 degrees centigrade. That is scorching. Even though we've got a bit of partial cloud, but it's brilliant sunshine for the most part. This circuit right now is definitely up to temperature, and with it our drivers being given the opportunity to push. The only thing is when they go racing, of course, they have to be aware of the fact that tyre degradation will be a factor, particularly in the final quarter of the race. And as we always say, and it is what we've seen over the course of previous seasons, and we've seen at the start of this season, the Elantra, and you're seeing one being piloted by Jones at the moment. The Elantra is normally what is the fastest car under one lap conditions when qualifying at the start of the race, but its tyre degradation on those front tyres can be very punishing, and we normally do see the Elantra drivers start to fall off towards the end. Meanwhile, interesting as Talasco goes pole once again, provisional at 28.104, now with 6 tenths and 600s, I should say, faster than Benjamin McCluskey. Audi. The Audi RS3, quite a strong car as a whole. It mixed over the curves, it can deal with some curves quite nicely, others it struggles with by comparison, but tyre degradation not a factor on the Audi. It's just one of those cars where the gearing is a bit different compared to the others, and we've typically seen it running higher gears at most circuits compared to other cars. We'll shortly get you on board with a Honda Civic driver to give you a direct comparison, and then we do have the Honda Veloster, which is the jack of all trades and the master of none machine, and meanwhile we also do have where's the Honda Civic Type R, and we see one being piloted by Martin Shirley for RD Sims as he makes his way through turn number 8 in the number 5 car, and well, of course the Honda Civic Type R being the handling car and also the one with the bravest brakes of them all in terms of how strong those brakes are, but it lacks top end speed, as we can see here a little bit of negotiating going on between one of the Doble Sim Racing cars and Shirley. Shirley lets them go. Me on the inside there, that's Jamie Dorey lifting off in the Veloster, but with the time we've got left, we'll very shortly be right on board with Shirley for a flying lap of the circuit as he makes his way through turn number 10 into 11. Well, he's going to be very close to the back of the 65, and that is the car of Isaac Doble, and I wonder if Shirley's picked the right place to go for this. He makes one down. In fact, what we may do is try and get a lap with another driver instead. It may be a bit compromised in that area. In fact, it's going to be James Holman who we jump on board with as he makes his way around and down towards turn at number 1. Now heading on down in the Honda Civic Type R, of course the difference here will be, it's be a lot bolder on the brakes, we won't have straight line speed or acceleration, and as he comes on through turn number 1, you can see they're braking at 250 meters, he goes up towards third gear, close to the walls, onto the brakes already as he comes on through the fountain section, using the curve there to turn the car, as he makes way into turn number 4, second gear all the way through, getting greedy with the throttle there, and having to lift off slightly before contact with the outside wall, comes through turn number 5, their second gear once again, but you can see right over that curve, the curbs unsettling the Honda it would seem today, particularly these low curves and the bumps in them. And now heading in towards turn 6 and 7 on the brakes there at the 200 board, coming through the left hand, the second gear powers out, lets the car naturally run outwards before bringing it back to the left hand side. Now heading into the next braking zone here, braking at the 200 board once again, second gear all the way through, and now he's going to have the double draft there while the Hondas and also an Elantra, although saying that the Elantra's pulled out of the way. Holman making his way down the back straight now, be hoping to be buffeted all the way down as he gets ready to go onto the brakes here, braking at about 220 metres from corner apex as he comes on through the right hander. In fact, I think it's yards those boards represent, not meters, apologies. And as he comes on through 10 in towards 11, very smooth on the direction change transmission as he comes on through 11 through the hairpin in first gear. And well, that is a lap of the Honda Civic Type R as brought to you by RD Sims Sports with James Holman. And well, what a smooth lap it was. Holman absolutely planted all the way through, and as he heads to the timeline, will he be able to improve at this time around? He's currently P13. No, he does not. It was a 28.821. His best lap was 28.48. And as they make the way down towards turn number 1, now 2.5 minutes remaining. It's extremely close, but right now it's still Andrea Romi at the top in the Pro class and overall, and he's joined on that front row currently if the qualifying session were to end. By this man in the Next Gen Racing at Veloster, albeit Mikey Doble. As soon as I'm about to say it's going to be a pro and front row lockout, no, it's no longer the case, it would seem, as Mikey Doble has suddenly gone the fastest of everybody with 28.038, and that is with a degree of success ballast in the car as well. I believe he's got somewhere in the region of about 22 kilograms in that car, so for the Elantra driver to be able to nail it that well, and indeed put with 6.5 hundredths between himself and Telasco, that is no mean feat, and well, he'll be hoping he can carry that in to the race itself, because the last time we saw him start right up the front, it was a bomb start for Mikey Doble, and he dropped down the order very rapidly. I believe that was back at Imola, if my memory serves me correctly, and we won't be wanting to repeat the same mistake twice, as he makes about turn 6 and 7 and down towards 8, but meanwhile, it's a pro ahead of 3 Pro-Ams, and then the next pro will be at this man, Marcello Reales, as he heads on down the start-finish straight. The Honda Civic Type R drive heading up towards the timeline, and what does not improve this time around, but the gap and the delta is becoming ever tighter, albeit the top 3 separated, sorry, the top 4 I should say, separated by less than a tenth, and then we've got a whole tenth and a half almost to Reales, as meanwhile James Holman immediately cuts us off mid-sentence and slices himself into P5 with 28.199, so the times continue to charge in, and well, Bernardo Colbe, as we can see there, Catherine Meredith saying nice one from Bernardo indeed, made his way up there. Tasco goes even faster by way 17 thousandths for pole position once again. This qualifying session is coming down to very fine margins, and will mean, well, we've got a couple of drivers in the pit lane who've ended their qualifying session early. That's Phil McDougall and also Francisco Melo. So out of our 40, in fact we have got 44 runners today, and one driver's yet to get a time on the board, and it's this man, Gabriel Yilmaz, in the Aztec Racing Machine. He's on his final lap, so he needs to try and find something, and we can see David Button and Michael Kirtler out there in P43 on his debut, and I believe his guest visit to this series, but as they make their way out of turn 8 and down towards 9, well, right now Yilmaz needs to get it all done on this one lap, and he's trying to get himself as high up the order as he can, because track position here is going to be beneficial, albeit it's not going to be the be-all and end-all, but overtaking around here, it's highly possible, but he is confined to particular zones as Yilmaz makes his way through turn number 10 now in the 26, a bit deep there coming through the corner, gets the car back together, but I think behind him he does have an Audi RS3 that's very eager to make ground. I think that's Paul Scott behind. In fact, it is Paul Scott. We can confirm it. And Yilmaz makes his way down the start-finish straight. Checker flag out in this qualifying session. So all drivers will be required to finish their current laps or make their way into the pit lane. And does Yilmaz get a valid time on the board? No, he does not. So Yilmaz will be starting 44th of 44 drivers. Meanwhile, some more laps coming on in, including what is a lap from Damon Mulqueen. Gavin Garner's just gone P17 with 28.526. Mulqueen making its way on down. Talas goes in the pit lane, so he's done and dusted. He thinks he's got it all done for pole, although I think they'll be biting fingernails. And Mikey Dole's into the pit lane, so if anyone's going to do it, it'll now be Marcello Reales, who's out there on the lap currently, or Benjamin McCluskey. And McCluskey's not too far off the back here on Mulqueen, as Mulqueen makes about the final corner. So what's it going to be here? Well, he's only gone faster than his previous best. In fact, he comes into the pit lane. He says it's not enough. Benjamin McCluskey, meanwhile, makes about the final corner. He's gone best in sector 1 for himself, personal best. He's following Michael Lees behind, who's P29. And as Lees crosses the timeline, what's it going to be for Lees? He moves up to P20. McCluskey, meanwhile, does he improve? No, he does not. Meanwhile, we've got more drivers out there trying to put laps in, including where's Linus Broström. In fact, Linus Broström is not on a valid lap because he has completed his final qualifying lap. He's making his way out of the fountain section at the moment. But meanwhile, Alex Meredith is still out there. He's tucked in behind another kind of form, Matthew Addy. Addy on a poor lap. He's not improving. So Addy will be starting P32 at best at the moment. Meredith will be starting P15 at best if he doesn't improve. In fact, both drivers then make their way into the pit lane. James Holman also coming around, not improving. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, it's going to be Andrea Talasco, who starts on pole position overall and in the Pro-Am class, and is joined on the front row by Mikey Doble. And well, what a front row we are going to have. It's going to be the battle of the Pro-Am and the Pro in towards turn number 1 from a standing start. And then behind them is going to be a second row filled with pros, Marcello Reales and Rafael Lobato, with Benjamin McCluskey starting P5 and joined by Bernardo Colbe. So we have definitely got a mix up inside that top 10 of pros and pro-ams, but as we see Michael Lees just creeping on around, that's qualifying complete. It's time to head to the grid for our first race of the day. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up. Andrea Talasco for VRGT Racing Team starts on pole position for the Pro-Am class, and overall joined by Mikey Dole from Doble Sim Racing, your pro pole sitter, who starts P2. The second row of the grid goes to the VRGT Racing Team driver Marcello Reales and Chemical E Motorsports Rafael Lobato, with Next Gen Racing Years Benjamin McCluskey and Chemical E Motorsports Bernardo Colbe completing your third row. Row 4 goes to the pair of James Holman for RD Sim Sport and what is Marco Benatelli for GRT Esport. And as our drivers continue to make their way on down the order there, Alan McCain for iRacing Esports and his teammate Sam Smith lock out the fifth row to complete the top 10. It's Reese Watt for JW Motorsport, starts off best of SP11, joined by the Sim Racing Collective's Andrew Pike. Within the 7th row, going to the pair of Damon Mulqueen and Andrea Romi. Row number 8 goes to Alex Meredith and John Higgins Jr., when Gavin Garner and Adam Delmont start on the 9th row, and the top 20 I should say, being completed by Martin Shirley and Michael Lees. Isaac Doble starts P21 ahead of Jamie Dorey, with the pair being followed up by Phil McDougall and Linus Broström. And on row number 13, it'll be the pair of Nick Clibbins and Lee Horn. Row 14 goes to Francisco Miller and Daniel Holmer, with row 15 to Dario Raffaetta and Mark Sykes. Row 16 is then followed up with Melvin Eckerson in his debut and Matthew Addy, with then row number 17 consisting of Luke Jones and Joseph Doble. Row 18 is Paolo Maniti and Paul Scott, followed up on row number 19 by Matthew Cheverton and Jake Pitt. Daniel Fritz and James Manscale complete your top 40, with Jonathan Collins and Philip Bruberg starting on the 21st row. Michael Kurtler and Gabriel Umaz, meanwhile, start on the 22nd and final row in what is P43 and P44. But the grid is almost set, ladies and gentlemen, and as we look back down the circuit side here, we are only moments away from the lights out procedure for race number 1. As we reload the overlay there to bring you back your circuit map, the circuit running all the way in terms of the grid start, all the way down to the final hairpin, so it's a long grid, and we await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights down, away we go for the first ever street race here in the NXTGEN Season 3. And as Andrea Romi gets a brilliant start, Mikey Doe immediately under pressure in the run down towards turn number 1. Meanwhile, further back, it's James Holman looking to go around the outside. Contact with James Holman as he's sent to the wall. It looks like it was a free wide, but as they make their way down to the braking zone here with the leaders right now, Doe will hold him firm. Cold brakes, cold tyres. They've got to keep their cool coming on through here for the first time of asking. We don't want to see any safety cars. Re-swap there on the outside, just missed the tyre barrier. But as they come down to the braking zone, everybody just gradually easing on through. A lot of two wides here, but everyone keeping their cool and carrying on. As Higgins Jr. here looking for the move around the inside of which James Holman as they come on through. We've had an instant for Bruberg and Paul Scott further back. But as meanwhile we can see here, it looks so Holman with that damage has got Gavin Gardner looking up the inside as the next gen racing with Douglas Motorsport driver in the all pink machine tries to make progress. Meanwhile, we see a Benjamin McCluskey having to go defensive versus a re-swap with Sam Smith on the outside there. Well, these guys are going to fall back from the top 6 immediately when they fight like that. And as they come down towards turn number 8, we're rolling on through, and Sam Smith holding the position for now. We've had further instances of Melvin Eckerson and Gabriel Yilmaz, but so far most drivers have made it through the opening lap unscathed. But as they power their way down the back straight here already, Smith still being pressured by the Audi of Reese. What you can see, that Audi so strong on the straight line, but on the brakes and in the corners it's a different story. Further back, meanwhile, Francesco Mello battling here with 3 wide with the pair of Martin Shirley and also Jamie Dorey. Dorey backs out and Francesco Mello on the inside, and there's a bit of contact to the wall further down the road. But as they make their way out of turn number 9 into 10, Dorey looking around the outside and gets Martin Shirley. Meanwhile, heavy on the brakes, Damon McQueen having to come to a standstill on the apex on that inside line, and well compromised or not, he carries on as they make the way onto lap number 2. So after one lap of racing, it's Andrea Romi who leads ahead of Doe P2, followed by Bernardo Colbe P3, Marcello Reyes P4, followed by Rafael Lobato P5, Benatelli P6, followed by Sam Smith P7, Watt P8 ahead of Benjamin McCluskey P9, and there's Adam McCain P10, but McCain looking up the inside for P9, and he goes all in there, and it is a nice move from McCain as he gets the place covered off succinctly as they head into the fountain. Meanwhile, best the rest is Andrew Pike in P11, Andrea Romi at P12 ahead of John Higgins Jr. That's your top 13. We can see that James Holman now starting to settle back in after a rough start, definitely feeling the elbows of other drivers, but these touring cars can handle it as they make their way through turns 4 and 5 and up towards 6 once more. Meanwhile, as we bring the battle box up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen so you can keep track of who's who around one another in terms of what we're focusing on, and we can see here Pike looking up the inside of McCluskey into turn 6. As they clear and head through 7, well, Pike's going to have to speed out the corner, but McCluskey will have the inside line and returning to 8. It's going to be side by side under braking. His sparks flying off the back of McCluskey's car, and as they come on through, now Andrea Romi's going to have a shot of this as John Higgins Jr. trying to help his teammate out, but the GRT Esport Audi from Italy now gaining all the horsepower it needs. It roars on down. They make the way up through. You can see their Pike going defensive, Romi being forced to go on the outside. Meanwhile, up the road, Reese Watt on the inside versus McCain. And this is defending rather than attacking, and Watt doing everything he can to keep McCain at bay. You can see here with this battling right now, the leaders, the top 7 are 3 seconds clear already as all our drivers come roaring on through. And as they do, I believe there's been a bit of an incident for a driver who we can see there going out the rear of the picture. Somebody going very slowly. In fact, we've got a car around, and that is John Higgins Jr. Higgins Jr. is around, and Gavin Gardner is just waiting for the field to clear the scene of the incident. I think there's more of a story to that than meets the eye. But what on earth has happened to John Higgins Jr.? We'll have a replay of that very shortly as everybody makes their way on through. But definitely they're very nip and tuckers. Meanwhile, looking back to Luke Jones here versus what is, I believe, Daniel Holmer. Holmer on the outside versus the Elantra Luke Jones. It's Audi versus Honda Elantra into the braking zone. Jones down the outside carries the speed, but he carries it into the wall. And Jones there's going to be feeling that one, the front suspension. You can see Smanskas down Cheverton immediately jumping on the back of him, but they're not going to find any which way through as we've got a car around there as well, and that's a car pointing the wrong way, and I believe that's Bernardo Colbe coming out the fountain, so even more drama. As meanwhile we look back up to what is Mikey Doble. In fact, can we find Mikey Doble at the moment? He's dropped out of the top 10 as we're to understand it. What on earth has happened to the double sim racing driver? We'll find out shortly enough. He's all the way down P42 at the moment, but that's happened off camera, so we've got a few stories to catch up with. Meanwhile, speaking of catching up, Michael Kirtler, we catch up with him now, and the number 50 Audi driver here wasting no time in going battling after a wounded Gavin Gardner, and we'll Gardner there with the wounds on the front of his Audi. You can definitely see that front bumper, and indeed the whole engine block's been pushed backwards in the car, and I can imagine that may have been in contact with John Higgins Jr. earlier on. But meanwhile, Paul Scott here looking at the drag races to battle the Audis as they come down towards the braking zone. RS3 on RS3 action as they come on through the right-hander, and well, I think this is going to be all said and done. Scott gets it moved in and defends on the inside into turn number 10, and Michael Kirtler there just sits behind it and waits for the next opportunity. But speaking of opportunities, we now have an opportunity to see what happened to John Higgins Jr. on lap number 2. So they're making their way through turn number 10 and in towards 11 here, coming through the left-hander. All looks good initially. And well, then it was the RD Simsport machine coming on through. Oh, goodness me. And well, that explains what happened to Gavin Gardner, as there was Daniel Holmer also involved in the mix. We take another look back at that. And well, from Daniel Holmer's perspective here, riding on board at the scene of the incident. And as he came on through here, he's going to come into the scene a little bit later on. And onto the brakes he will go, and as he does here, well, I think you're going to see Higginson on the inside. Holmer, well, in fact, that's not what we're looking at exactly here, so we're seeing a bit of a different part of the incident. So in fact, it was the other RD Simsport machine. We're looking at the Bright Esports car there. We'll correct ourselves and get lost with the machine, but Holmer coming on through as we return it to the live picture. In fact, it was James Holman, we should correct ourselves there, getting caught up, and well, Holman being given the tap from Gavin Gardner, and that explains the full story. But then in terms of other stories, what happened to what was Mikey Doe only moments ago on lap number 3 was we take a look here into turn number 1, battling side by side with, I believe that's the Kemmington Motorsport machine of, we're trying to understand who it is. I think it's Bernardo Colbe, and with Doe being turned across there, everyone coming to a standstill, and well, Doe just being turned, and everyone behaving as best they could there, because when one car goes around, then everybody else is to follow through it, and Doe just letting the car roll back, and that explains what happened to both Doe and Colbe. As we take a look back at that from the perspective of Bernardo Colbe, as he's battling his way into the corner on the outside here, and it's an innocent moment as he looked up the inside into 2, and he's going to argue his nose was cut off, but of course at this point slams the brakes on, and everyone else behind just comes barreling in despite the brakes on, and Colbe has to just get the car out the way in the end, albeit I think somebody does give him the hurry up and sends him round. As we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, well, we're now on to lap number 5 of 13. Still plenty of races to go. No safety car called yet, due to the fact that all incidents that have occurred have been cleared in a very short period of time. We haven't needed to get a safety car out to help clear the road surface. And as we look from Kurtler in P33 to your race leader of Andrea Tolasco, the VRGT Racing team driver, well, he's very comfortably leading this race at the moment with what is a 5.8 second gap to Rafael Lobato for Capital E Motorsport. And then behind him, we do have in P3, Marcello Real is the other VRGT Racing team driver on the overall podium slots at the moment, and he's trying to hold off Sam Swift, but your race leader absolutely charging off at the canter as they make their way in towards turns 10 and 11. There's still plenty of laps to be turned here, and anything can happen till it's all over, but as they come out to the right hander, everybody right now set down and looking to get a move on. There's no question about it as they power their way on through. But as they do, meanwhile, we can see they're a bit further back. Alan McCain still trying to put some pressure onto Reese Watt, but Watt withstanding this pressure phenomenally so, as the iRacing Esports Elantra once again ever close, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Is there going to be a move here from McCain? If it is, it's going to be outside all the way around, and what's going to make this as tricky as possible. And of course, that outside line there is the natural race line initially, but you have to be careful of the fact if you go too wide, then that tyre barrier is very menacing on the exit. But as they come through, also McCluskey getting ever close out the corner, and as we look back from the rear of Reese Watt's car, the 32 Audi definitely feeling the pressure, but what withstanded it, and this is credit to his driving ability as they make their way out to turn number 5, and this is why Reese Watt currently is one of your top 2 drivers in the Championship. He has put down his foot every time in each and every round, and he's demonstrated just the ability not just to over attack but also to be able to defend as well as possible. But as they make the way in towards turn number 8, well, with McCluskey also close, only a further 3/10 back from McCain, you can understand why Watt does not want McCain getting on through, so as it puts him in direct conflict with another Brian driver. But as they make the way down the back straight, carrying all the speed on down again, you can see that Elantra, it does pick up the speed, but the Audi just able to outmatch the Elantra on the straight line, but under the brakes, it's a completely different story. McCain just literally ripping time out under braking, but as they come on through and in towards turn number 11, we get a faithful there with one of our marshals, who's keeping us all safe today, and as they make their way out of turn number 11, well, the marshals post there definitely being staffed at full canter, but as they head down the start for the straight here, Reese Watt doing everything he needs to right now. Meanwhile, looking further back, Jamie Dorey's been involved in some sort of incident. He's fallen off the circuit there at turn number 10. I want to say that off the natural racing line. He's dropped down to P19. That's Linus Brustrom, who's trying to look for a move on the next gen race with Douglas Motorsport Drive, your championship leader going into tonight over in the pro class. And with Brustrom here going too wide in the run down towards turn number 1. It's going to be Dorey on the inside, but I think Brustrom's already got this done, and this Dorey dares to go all in on the brakes. as they head onto the anchors now. Well, Dorey there backs off. I think he respects the fact that he's just got to try and pick up the points here rather than push his luck, and we've still got half the race to go approximately, as they are on lap number 7 of 13. But looking at from Dorey to a bit further back to Daniel Fritz, the Whiskey Runners racing with NXTGEN, racing blue driver in the 31 car, coming on down there, flying the Australian flag proud on the top of the machine. He's chasing after what is their Eckerson, as well, and Eckerson on his debut battling for his P90 in the Prime class, P34 overall. And as they come down free, you see John Higgins Jr. they're getting close. Higgins Jr. of course had been turned around much earlier on by what was James Holman in the run through turn number 11. That's what we saw, of course. And as they come down through turn number 5 with a bit of aid from Gavin Garner, we should point out as well that contact. Well, meanwhile, we can see Melvin Eckerson here looking around the outside. He can't quite find it versus Collins and also Kurtler. It's Kurtler really starting to bunch these guys up. Meanwhile, Higgins Jr. they're battling with Fritz as they come over the brown down and into the braking zone. They go for turn number 8, and it's going to be too wide there. Collins on the inside gets it done versus Kurtler. Oh my good lord! And there's contact to the wall there for Fernando Colbe, and furthermore contact between him and Daniel Fritz. The two of them coming together, and well, I think they were both cars parked up. Fritz is going to try and get the car to move, and well, Colbe they're stuck in the wall. I don't think it's going to be a safety car. Both drivers will get underway, and they are away from other machines, but not the way they wanted it to go. Meanwhile, we look back here to Matthew Cheverton in P27 in the Aztec Racing machine as he makes his way across the timeline. He's got Paul Scott close behind as they make the run to lap 8 of 13. And well, can the 390 Honda hold on to P27, P12 and Prime class? Scott all over the back of him here. Cheverton puts the car in the middle road, coming out the pit lane. That's Philip Bruberger's P42, leaving there with a lap down as they come through 1 into 2 right now. Cheverton doing everything right, and you can see where's Palamaniti and Matthew Addy close behind as well. And well, Matthew Addy perhaps having one of the worst runs so far this season in terms of potential results in round at number 4 so far, given the fact we normally see him inside the top 10 of the Prime class, but right now he's battling to be inside the top 15 of said class. But meanwhile, looking here from the Primes, all pushing on and staying line and stern for a brief moment. We look up to what is P16, the former Martin Shirley, as the RD Supersport machine makes its way down the back straight. He's got Phil McDougall behind, and well, Phil McDougall has gone understated so far, and we always refer to him as the silent but deadly driver in the fact he just creeps up the field and creeps up behind everybody. You don't see him. And the 6R Project Black driver in P17 at the moment, he's gained 6 places overall, at 3 in class since the start of the race. He's P5 in Prime. He's got Lee Horn behind him, and as they make the way out of the corner, oh, back to the wall there for Martin Shirley. That's not the way. As they make the way out of turn number 11 and down towards 1, that's not the way you want to go. 1 or 2 knocks to the wall you can withstand, but the more and more you do it, the more damage it puts to that front left suspension, and it starts to take the wheels out of alignment, plus also it damages the aero, and that costs you top end speed. And McDougall's got the overspeed here. He's going to go into turn number 1, side by side onto the brakes. It's Honda on Honda, and as they come through, Phil McDougall will get the move done, shuts the door nicely into the fountain run, and behind Lee Horn all over the back of this group as we ride on board with the NXTGEN Racing yellow car. Now it's the battle of the Civics at the moment as they make their way to turns 4 and 5, but Lee Horn will know he needs to clear Shirley if he wants to have an opportunity to take on McDougall for that P5 slot in the Prime class. As they come on the ground, of course, every place gained is going to be tantamount to success, because wherever you finish in this race is where you start for race number 2. But as they make their way down into turns 6 and 7 here, long line into turns 6 and 7, and it's going to be the same out. Horn, he does seem to have a bit of a better mastery of the apex, and I think the damage that Shirley is running on the front end of that car, the front left side, is starting to be felt as they come through turn at number 8. You can see there Shirley just struggling for rotation, the car naturally pulling away from him as they make their way up towards turn number 9 now. Horn's close, but only 2 tenths off, it's not enough. He needs to be within 1.5 tenths there as they come through turn number 9 in towards 10 and 11. But heading on through towards the end of the lap. Meanwhile, fastest lap of the race has just been set to a 27.902 in the form of Andrea Telasco at the front of the field. The Prime driver absolutely charging away with things, but Lee Horn having to stay behind for the time being as they make their way on towards their 10th lap of the race conditions. But looking from them to a bit further up the road, and meanwhile inside the top 10, this is Reese Watt, and if it sounds as though we're on repeat here, it is because you are still looking at Reese Watt keeping Alan McCain behind in the battle for P6 overall, albeit the Prime driver ahead of the Pro. And as they come through the right hand return 4 up towards 5, well, it's also Benjamin McCluskey staying there, and Watt doing everything so far to keep that position, but it's a small error there coming out of 5. You notice how the car just drops slightly off the curb and he's had to hesitate on the throttle. McCain thinks about it. He's definitely tempted to send it, but it's not the right time. If McCain's going to do it, it will be on the final lap where he goes for it to turn 6 and 7. It is a viable overtaking spot, but the amount of speed lead. You're going to bleed off in the run towards turn 8. Means that McCluskey and also Andrew Pike behind will have an opportunity. But I think it's not going to matter anymore as it's a drag race between Elantra and Audi RS3 as they make their way down towards turn number 9. Flashing lights in front from Benatelli towards Yilmaz. But meanwhile, Adam McCain on the inside. What on the outside? A bit of contact between the two. It's a light feather touch in the end. But what's going to be compromised through 10? Simon McCluskey as they come into the hairpin. Now who's going to back out? McCluskey does not give in. What's on the outside? But it's going to be a long way round and he just misses the wall by a hair's width as they make their way down the start finish straight. This isn't over yet. Pike now looks to try and make the move. The pro driver on the inside of what coming through the curvature of the start finish line as they make their way down towards turn 1. Pike will very quickly selling himself on the outside, but he's been given the toe there. And McCluskey as they head in. McCluskey's trying to play this smart. He's trying to get Pike to put up a fight, but as they come down towards 1 here, well, what's still there on the inside? Pike goes around the outside. He's going to get clipped to the apex here, and what in the end has to back out. Meanwhile, trying to get in is Andrea Romi, but Romi looks for it. He can't find it as the Audi drivers are made to wait their turn, but Benjamin McCluskey gets it done for P2 in the Prime class, P7 overall, and at a critical point as well with McCain setting up the move for him effectively in terms of that momentum, and McCluskey opened up and made it work as they made their way down towards turn 6 and 7. But you can see here Marco Benatelli now being caught up behind Gabriel Yilmaz. Yilmaz is P8 and a lap down. Benatelli not happy with this flashing his lights. Yilmaz moves aside, and we can see McCain there looking around the outside. Benatelli being given the right to defend for GRT Esport, but the run off the corner. McCain goes to the cutback here. Benatelli defends here. Oh my good lord, and that is what into the wall with Yilmaz coming out of the corner. Meanwhile, we do focus on this battle still as James Holman has come through the scene of the inside. Believe everyone's unscathed, minus Watt and Yilmaz. But meanwhile, Benatelli on the inside to outside. McCain fights back and he holds it on the inside through 10, and Alan McCain does get ahead as they make their way into turn number 11. It's all done for now for McCain, or is it as he exits the corner, and McCain has moved up to P5 overall, P4 in Pro. As they head down the start finish straight and on towards the penultimate lap, where it's a long charge once again, and meanwhile further back it's a long traffic jam here as led by Lee Horn, and that's Lee Horn in P16. He's got over the back of Martin Shirley. As we're hearing that Reese was had to be towed to the pits after the contact with Gabriel Yilmaz, we see a crippled and crumpled Francesco Miller just further up the road in P14. But meanwhile, Lee Horn here staying clear of Shirley. Shirley under pressure from Linus Brustrom, and it's going to be the pro ahead of the prime as they come on down towards the braking zone. Onto the brakes they go. Shirley defends here. Brustrom looks around the outside. Brustrom's not giving in as they come through the left-hander. A little bit of a touch there potentially, but I don't think so. I think in the end Martin Shirley giving up, but as they come through turn 1 and 2, we can see there Jamie Dorey trying to sneak the move on his fellow pro driver Shirley, but Shirley covered that one off. So I think Shirley playing the right call in what to defend versus what to let go, keeping his fellow pro driver behind but letting the prime go as a Brustrom really showed bravery there to go around the outside through turn 1 and into 2. But as they head down, Gabriel Yilmaz there just trundling along, I should say, with the blue flags being waved to him. Meanwhile, further back, Daniel Holmer from Bright Esports, the Swede, with the flag on the top of the car as he comes out of turn 6 and 7 down towards 8. Well, we mistook him earlier for what was James Holman. I do apologise for that once again. And as they make their way out of turn number 8, he won't be mistaken now as he charges on down the back straight, albeit not close enough to look for the move versus Dario Refaeta. As Refaeta looking up the inside of Jamie Dorey, but the Honda's not got the legs to be able to enact the move. Meanwhile, further back, we can see it there with, I do believe, James Vasquez-Gal, who is still charged on P24, the Aztec Racing, as the final lap has been started by a race leader. Meanwhile, for everybody else, the majority of the field, they're still trying to make their way onto the final lap. It's a long way to go, and Michael Lees, he'll know all about it as he's got on the inside in there, John Higgins Jr. And, well, I can tell you, Higgins Jr. right now, he's got his angry face on, as I think we did see there, mentioned by John Higgins Sr. in the YouTube chat, trying to recover places. Lees in return says, no, you don't, and goes very close on the inside. They all come to a standstill on the corner. They're all jammed together, and well, now I think for Lees that was perhaps not the way to go about it, and Luke Jones there innocently just being made to have to wait as Lees just parks the car up and waits for the field to come on through. But definitely now I think Michael Lees coming a bit too strong into the corner, as meanwhile clearing the corner is Kurtler, but going from them. Meanwhile, here's your race leader of Andrea Talasco, and what you can see in the rear of the pitch, that's Rafael Labarta and Marcelo Reles as we look back, and well, Reles is looking for the move here for P2 right at the end. I don't think he's going to find behind it as they come through the right-hander of turn number 9. But Lobato under a lot of pressure as they head on through into the hairpin for the final time of asking in race number 1 today. But meanwhile, cleared the hairpin. Here's your race leader, ladies and gentlemen. It's a sprint to the finish line, and what was a dominant run off the line turns into an absolutely brilliant win for Andrea Telasco for VRGT Racing Team. P1 overall in the Pro-Am class, ahead of Marcello Reles, who holds on to take the Pro win, ahead of Rafael Lobato P3, and then it's Sam Smith P4, ahead of Alan McCain P5, followed up by what is Marco Benatelli and Andrew Pike. Benjamin McCuskey, your runner-up in the Pro-Am class there, P8 overall, holding off Andrea Romi to the line, and it'll be with Alex Meredith and James Holman at P10, P11, with Meredith P3 on the podium there in the Pro-Am class. Further on back, we've got more drivers coming to line, all flashing their lights here, including Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing Yellow, P16 ahead of Linus Brustrom with one of his strongest performances of the season, P6 in the Pro-Am class. We're not going to catch the ball as they cross the line, ladies and gentlemen, with the thickness of the field in terms of number of cars, but as we do look to other drivers still battling to the line, this is Matthew Addy. I think he's just going to outdrake James Vasquez going the battle for P12 in the Pro-Am class, P27 overall as they come on through. And then further back, the last finisher on the lead lap will be Joseph Doble for Doble Sim Racing, with the fact we do then have a number of drivers who finished a lap down already, including his brother, Isaac Doble. But as he comes on through the last couple of corners, well, for Joseph Doble, it has been a difficult start to proceedings today, but still there's plenty more on the scoreboard potentially in the next race. We've just seen Michael Kurtler come across the start-finish line, albeit slightly out of camera shot, the same for Michael Lees, but Joseph Doble, our 35th and final lead lap finisher. But what a race for Andrea Telasco as he makes his way on down the back straight. Everyone crowded around him. Of course, it's always good when we do see a new driver at the top step of the podium overall, and will be given there the winner's parade as he makes his way back to the pit lane with everybody circling him around as they make the way down through turn 9 and into 10. For Marcello Reles as well, a fantastic drive. VRGT making it a 1-2 across the overall, and also a win in both classes. And in the end, Rafael Lobato just missing out in pushing as hard as he possibly could, but Reles making it that P2 with the Chemical E Motorsport T1 driver becoming your pro runner-up, but still in the number 24 car. I think he'll take all the positives from that one. And also, speaking of other stories further down the field, a good result for Linus Brustrom, his best result of the season in class for the Swede for Bright Esports, and well, he'll be looking to try and carry that into the second race of the day. And Matthew Cheverton as well, another fish just outside the top 20, but the Aztec Racing drive fighting hard, gaining 12 places overall, and his first top 10 in the Pro-Am class this season. A great drive from the Honda driver, and well, he'll be absolutely buoyant about that as he makes his way into the second race of the day. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And I think there might be a few stewards' inquiries after this first race. And it is Andrea Telasco who takes the win in the end and leads home a VRGT Racing Team 1-2. And he takes the Pro-Am win with it ahead of Marcello Reles, your pro winner in P2. There's Rafael Lobato, fish P3 there for Chemical E Motorsport T1, with Sam J. Smith there fishing P4, not on the overall podium for iRacing Esports, but taking the final spot on the pro podium. So the pro podium in the end consists of Marcello Reles, Rafael Lobato and Sam Smith, and then Alan McCain completing your overall top 5 for iRacing Esports and a GRT Esports and Marco Benatelli. The Sim Racing collectors Andrew Pike P7 in a well-deserved drive there, and bringing on home another top 10 with Benjamin McCluskey, your runner-up in the Pro-Am class for Next Gen Racing Yellow, ahead of Andrea Romi for the GRT Esports, and Alex Meredith bringing on home a key podium there, P3 in class, and that makes up the Pro-Am podium of Andrea Telasco, Benjamin McCluskey and Alex Meredith. James Holman, best of the rest there on his debut for RD Simsport P11, ahead of Adam Delmont, with Delmont Queen, Francisco Mello and Phil McDougall completing your top 15. And the CXR Project Black driver fighting through to a P4 finish of the Pro-Am class. He'll be absolutely pleased with that, given the way the results have gone so far this season. He's finally finding his momentum today. And there's Lee Horns at Next Gen Racing, just behind by what was 1.5 seconds in the end, ahead of Linus Brostrom for Bright Esports. Following on through to P18, Dario Fighter ahead of Daniel Holmer, and then Jamie Dorey completing your top 20 for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport. A difficult first race of the day, finding himself going backwards more than forwards. We expected that with the success balance when I caught up with him before going racing today. And Martin Shirley P21 for RD Simsport after what was a couple of early incidents cost him dear, ahead of Nick Clibbins, and then Gavin Garner, Paul Scott and Matthew Cheverton completing your top 25. Palamiti at P26 ahead of Matthew Addy, with James Vasquez Gal there P28, and not quite able to match his teammate Cheverton, but still more racing to come. And then John Heans Jr. coming to P29 ahead of Melvin Eckerson, and Eckerson on his debut P30 there for Bright Esports, ahead of Jonathan Collins, with Luke Jones P32 ahead of Michael Kurtler, Michael Lees P34, and Joseph Doble, the last of your lead lap finishes, P35 for Doble Sim Racing. It was his brother and teammate Isaac Dorey, the first of the lap down finishers, P36, ahead of Jake Pitt, with Mark Sykes P38. And as we continue on through, Gabriel Yilmaz and Philip Bruber completing your top 40, ahead of Daniel Fritz and Mikey Doble. 2 laps down the end, Reswap for JW Motorsport, and our sole retiree from the race, Bernardo Colbe, P44 of 44 for Chemical E Motorsport, completing half the race distance and therefore will be classified at P44. But that was race number 1 of 3 today, ladies and gentlemen, and don't go anywhere because in approximately 5 to 7 minutes time, we'll be back for the build up to race number 2, another 13 lap race around Long Beach City, and well, if race number 1 was a thriller, you could expect it's only going to escalate from this point onwards in the second race. We'll be back shortly for more racing action. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race 2 of 3 today here in Long Beach City in the state of California in the US of A. And it is an absolute scorch here right now. And I'm talking not just about the weather, but also about the hot temperament of the racing in the NXTGEN Season 3 at round number 4. And what brilliant racing we've had thus far. Andrea Romi was your winner in race number 1 of the day in a brilliant drive for the prime driver. But as our drivers all get set and ready to go racing for the second time with only 3.5 minutes to go. Well, there was a lot to talk about in the opening race, most definitely so, and well, let's try to quickly digest it. Of course, we expect it to be in a street circuit, and NXTCC's first venture onto a street circuit. There are always going to be some instance, but for the most part, the instance we did see were quite isolated, and normally drivers were able to clear the road surface quickly, and no safety car was required. And well, fingers crossed that may continue. That goes to show you the high standard of racing from all the drivers up and down the field, and indeed, with the high standard, of course, we got to see some standout performances, including a third place in the prime class from this man, Alex Meredith, the 44 driver from Chemical E Motorsport T1, who really went all in for it, albeit did inherit one position from fellow Chemical E Motorsport driver Bernardo Colbe, who was involved in the incident when Mikey Doe were into the fountain section, where the two of them then just clipped one another and came together into turn number 2. But they'll both learn from that one. And of course, when others lose out, it's time for those behind to rise, and Meredith was able to pick up. But also, to get to that podium finish, he had to make sure to stay right on the circuit and keep his head down all the way to the end, as he gets extremely close to the exit wall there. And goodness me, if his heart wasn't skipping a beat, mine most certainly has. But as he makes his way down towards turn at number 9, of course we do look to what is Jamie Dorey, and well, it was the target of a top 20 finish in the first race of the day for the next gen racing with Douglas Motorsport driver. That 51.6 kilograms of success ballast definitely being felt as he makes his way down towards turn at number 9 once again. I think his target will be just to finish inside the top 20 in this one, so that way he gives himself the best possible opportunity to be part of the reverse grid. Now, we should point out, of course, that we have for the last 2 rounds had P22 drawn out of the lottery bowl. We're not expecting P22 to come a third time. If it does, then I would suggest that everyone goes buy a lottery ticket right now, because those are some very interesting odds, and we can assure you that there's no loading of any of the lottery balls. It's just by chance that we had the same number come up twice. But as we do see it, Jamie Dorey heading on down. Meanwhile, we look to Phil McDougall in the CXR Project Black Machine, and bringing home a P4 in the Prime class in the first race of the day. And the Honda Civic Type R driver in the 83 really enjoying the racing and having a good time, it would seem, as we did see a bit of smiley face there in terms of emojis in the YouTube chat from the man himself. But it did look as though most of you, well, all of you enjoyed the racing, as we say hello to Katie Eames in the Facebook chat. And I can definitely tell you, Katie, I'm feeling fantastic. And well, my voice isn't feeling fantastic at the moment, I can tell you that. We've still got 2 more races to go, but I'm sure it's going to survive, and drinking plenty of water. And also saying hello there to as well what is Handsome Stewart. I believe we said hello to earlier. We said 7th place, a decent race, and indeed, and will it continue? That is the question. But as we do see all drivers now getting absolutely set, and Michael at least making his way down towards turn number 1 out the pit lane. Well, it's only a short run back onto circuit. I think it's just making sure all the equipment is working. It's reaching fever pitch down in the paddock, I can tell you that. Everyone is practically set now for the second race of the day, and well, plenty more battling to come. And who is going to come away the winner? Will it be Andrea Romi who makes it 2 wins out of 2, or could we see a different name head to the top? Well, about to find that out, and keep your eyes on Andrea Romi, of course, the GRT eSport driver who found himself thwarted in trying to progress towards the top 5 overall in the Pro class in the first race after being held back in P10 for so long. But I think the Italian will definitely now try and rise to the challenge and make some early gains. And as the checker flag comes out in this final practice warm-up, it's now time for our drivers to consider making the way to the grid, because we've got another 13 laps of racing coming up very shortly. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for race number 2. Andrea Romi lines up on pole position once again for VRGT Racing Team, joined by teammate Marcello Reles. Behind them, Rafael Lobato and Sam J. Smith, with row number 3 going to the pair of Alan McCain and Marco Benatelli. Then on row 4, it's Andrew Pike and Benjamin McCluskey line up together there ahead of the completion of the top 10 in the hands of Andrea Romi and Alex Meredith. James Holman and Adam Delmont complete your top 12 and your 6th row with it. Then row number 7 goes to Damon Mulqueen and Francisco Melo, with Phil McDougall and Lee Horn line up together on row number 8. Linus Broström and Andrea Romi line up in row number 9, and the top 20 is followed up and completed by Daniel Homer and Jamie Dorey, with the two pros ahead of Martin Shirley and Nick Clemens, who start on the 11th row. Row at number 12 goes to Gavin Garner and Paul Scott, followed up by the pairing of Matthew Cheverton and Paolo Maniti. And then we do have on row 14 Matthew Addy and James Vasquez-Gal, with John Higgins Jr. and Melvin Erkison completing the run to P30. On row 16 is Jonathan Collins and Luke Jones. The grid set though, ladies and gentlemen, we do have to go back to the front of the field. We await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the second race of the day here at Long Beach as Andrea Romi gets a lot of wheel spin off the line. It's not a perfect start, and as the VRGT Racing Team pair of Reles and Romi charge their way down towards turn number 1. Who's going to come out on top here? Reles is on the outside, but meanwhile Romi is now starting to build speed as they enter the braking zone. Meanwhile Rafael Lobato in P3 looking up the inside of what is there. Reles as they go through turn number 1. It's contact to the wall there for one of the cars of the Chemical Motorsport machine. Lobato getting it wrong, but he's been able to hold it together as they clear the fountain. And as they all come through, everybody safely making it through, it would seem. Albeit we'll have to take a look back shortly. I think there has been an incident involving a couple of drives at the fountain. But meanwhile, all the field coming on through, and there's a bit of a gap emerging. I believe there, what may have been Benatelli falling back of a Mole Queen. I think that's where the gap has arisen. I think we've had at least 3 or 4 drives have a spin in the fountain section. We'll try and understand shortly what's happened. But meanwhile, as we see here, Francesco Mella looking around the outside of what is there. Benjamin McCluskey under braking into turn 6 and 7. Will he be able to find a way on through? He will be able to, as McCluskey with a damaged car. And I think McCluskey right now suffering from wounds that cost him speed and cornering ability. As meanwhile, Phil McDougall also trying to come through on the inside there. McCluskey made to graze the tyre barrier as they make the way down the back straight now. Meanwhile, further behind Derry Rafaeta, Lee Horn and Benjamin McCluskey fighting. McCluskey falling back even further as Rafaeta now looking around the outside of Lee Horn into turn number 9 in the battle for P14. But Horn's just going to defend there as they come through the right into left-right complex. The hairpin they go onto the brakes. No way through this time. It's single line formation. Meanwhile, further back we can see Nick Clemens looking around the outside of Michael Kurtler as Kurtler going defensive there, and as they break the way, then Clemens was direction to the front of the car. Meanwhile, Jones, we has Paolo Maniti look up the inside, but Maniti's overcut the corner. Meanwhile, cut back aplenty there by Philip Bruberg and Matthew Cheverton made to go to the wall, and Cheverton coming off the worst as Maniti tried to turn the car around and in return got a lot of oversteer, and well, Frieda's not going to one corner exit. But as they make their way across the line and down towards turn number 1, and once again, still battling going on here as Mark Sykes getting 9 places off the line, 4 in class, and down to the braking zone for turn 1 he goes, defending it versus Philip Bruberg as he tries to outbrake the Honda. He can't do it. Meanwhile, coming in very hot behind is Jonathan Collins, and Collins almost wiping off the rear of the Audi as they make their way into turns 2 and 3. Through the fountain they go. Michael Lee's trying to make progress here on the inside, riding behind the apex curve and taking a bit of the fauna with him as he comes into turn number 4. Reswap behind him, and things are now starting to settle down, or are they? As meanwhile, looking a bit further on the road, Luke Jones on the inside there versus Michael Kurtler, and getting the move done for P23, P9 in class as Jones is trying to make his way further and further up the playing field. But as they come out to turn 7 and down towards 8, but we do have quite a bit to dissect. I believe we have had at least 4 or 5 drivers involved in the open lap incident at the fountain, and we will get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, looking up the road, 3 wide into turn number 9. Phil McDougall in the middle road, contact there with what was, I believe, Benatelli, and McDougall goes to the wall, but as he does, well, our Honda's definitely going to be shaken, but will he be stirred to move on as he goes onto the brakes there, taps the rear Rafaeta's car, further tap to the rear as they come through the hairpin, but they all keep it calm and carry on. But Phil McDougall there definitely picking up quite a bit of damage, it would seem, with that nasty shunt, and as they make the way down the start-finish straight, where it looks like they're going slow until they roll past the camera and you get a sense of speed. And meanwhile, Gavin Gone looking around the outside to inside on the kink, and now down to the braking zone to turn 1 versus Benatelli, and Benatelli's come off the worst here. Meanwhile, Daniel Holmer looks up the inside, goes all in on the brakes there, and as he goes in, it's going to be P17 for Daniel Holmer for Bright Esports. He comes out of turn 1 and in towards turn number 2. But as they make the way on through the fountain this time, well, we look to the front of the field, and after what is 3.5 laps, it's Andrea Romi who leads ahead of Rafael Lobato P2, Marcello Reles P3, followed by Alan McCain P4, and then it's Sam Smith P5 ahead of Andrew Pike, and then Andrea Romi P7, making 2 places overall since the start, but losing 2 in class. James Holman P8 ahead of Alex Meredith P9. Alex Meredith still holding on inside the top 10, and then it's Dale McQueen at P10, and we do have a 6-second gap to the best of the rest. in the hands of Francesco Melo as the Chemical Motorsport 1 driver makes his way on down. But meanwhile, further back, one of the biggest gainers at the start of this race is John Higgins Jr. He's gained always 8 places from P29. He's moved up to P21 for the Sim Racing Collective as he makes his way down the back straight. And a number of you commented on that in the YouTube chat. And just up the road there, well, you can see side by side, Shirley on the inside of Benatelli. Benatelli falling further back. I think there's enough damage on that Hyundai. In fact, it's missing its rear wing by the looks of things. And I think that explains everything in the fact he's got no rear downforce. So right now, Benatelli sliding all over the place. In fact, the rear boot is trying to come up as they make the way down towards turn number 1 this time. And will Martin Shirley gains P18 overall. Matthew Addy trying to look for a move, and John Higgins Jr. on the back of the snake train. But as they head on down, meanwhile, we look further back to Mikey Doe, and there's a car around at what is the turn 11 hairpin, and we didn't quite see who that was, but he's trying to get himself back up the right way. That's the 96 car of Bernardo Colbe as he recovers the car. But the Chemical Motorsport driver definitely in the wars there, and will now get him back up to speed. Meanwhile, speaking of drivers who are clear of all that, Michael Lee's looking on the inside here of what is Matthew Cheverton. Cheverton tucks in behind in the Honda, and well, in the end it's Lees who comes on through. More cars round. Everyone takes space of action there, and well, that's in synchronicity. And Cheverton cheekily comes back versus Lees. Well, how about that for Matthew Cheverton? Well, I don't think he would have been expected to make a move under yellow flags there. But right now, the 390 driver going all in, the Aztec Racing driver, definitely making himself felt as 2 drivers round. We're trying to understand who that was involved in the incident. We can't quite tell you at the moment. But meanwhile, what we can tell you is making the way through turn 6 and 7, Isaac Doble, finding himself in a battle with Mark Sykes and also Michael Kurtler. As meanwhile, Paul Scott clears the pair of them. Kurtler on the inside versus Sykes meanwhile. And it's going to be a drag race of the Audis here down the back straight as they power their way on down towards turn number 9. But they go line to stern in the end, and Kurtler falls behind as they make their way towards the next braking zone. But as we finally get a moment to catch our breath, well, I say we're going to get a moment, we don't, because here is John Higgins Jr. having to defend versus Matthew Addy as he comes through turn number 11. And Addy looking for the move around the outside but can't find it. As they make their way down towards turn at number 1 this time around, we do think the battling is now starting to calm down a little bit, although I say that Lee Horn has just found his way past Francesco Melo for P11, but we do have an opportunity to take a look back at what happened on the open lap, and indeed the major incident that we saw into the fountain, as we now get the replay. This was Adam Delman who we focus on here as he made his way round the outside of what's Damon Mulqueen. Oh, goodness me. And it started off with the 11 car spearing to the wall and everybody coming to a stop. And that explains why the field has separated as much as it did. Now, that was Benatelli who was caught up in that instant. Marco Benatelli really starting off the chain reaction. We take another look back from Benatelli's perspective here. Three-way with the 2 iRacing esports cars squeezing him, and it was contact there with Sam Smith, and then being tapped on the rear by, I believe, Andrew Pike, and that's what happened to Benatelli. And in the end, everybody doing really well to stop their cars in time, and credit to all the drivers in terms of reacting to it. I think some drivers did get a bit of a knock on their front and the rear where they've all had to stop. You can see all the parts of cars, but everybody actually responding really well to it, and as a result being able to go racing once again. But that was the open up incident through the fountain, so Benatelli really caught up in the mix there, and as a result with Pike as well. And Andrew Pike still running in P6, albeit Benatelli now all the way down to what is outside the top 30, and in fact running in what is, we're trying to ascertain his position at the moment. He's in P21, he is inside the top 30, he's P21, just outside the top 20, and now he is into the top 20, as we've had Francesco Melo into the pit lane. But meanwhile, battling here as they make the way down, well, don't be fooled, that is the Aztec Racing car of Gabriel Yilmaz on the outside. He's lifting off for blue flags, he's not battling for position, but meanwhile, trying to come roaring on throughout the inside of Benatelli. That is Luke Jones on these live pictures. He moves up into P20. So Benatelli there, the heavily wounded car, is just trying to get to the end and trying to stay inside the top 23 to potentially be eligible for a reverse grid pole. But as they make the way through turn 4 into 5, we're almost at the halfway point of this race already, and time has absolutely flown on by. We do have quite a number of drivers who have had to come into the pits for repair work to their cars, but everything now seems to be calming on down. But meanwhile, as we do see there, Jones flashes lights versus Yilmaz to say to him, "Can you please politely move aside or let me come on through because I need to go racing?" Well, Yilmaz responds immediately. Meanwhile, further down the order, here is Mikey Doble looking for a move versus Kurtler on the round. Trying to go around the inside, and in the end, Kurtler saw an apex, Mikey Dole taps him on the rear, and well, in the end, Dole does get on through, but I don't think he wanted to do it that way. Meanwhile, Jonathan Collins up the inside of Kurtler. Kurtler there on the outside, a bit of a tap between the turban, and Jonathan Collins gets it done a bit forceful there. And I think for Kurtler is really feeling the elbows of other drivers as they make the way on down the back straight and up towards turn at number 9. But as they charge one down, Joseph Doe will now try and go past the Audi that's definitely seen its fair share of being knocked around so far. I can tell you one thing, Kurtler right now definitely carrying on. He's not being phased by this. He's going to defend versus the double sim racing driver of Joseph Doe. Well, on the brakes they go, and the Aztec Racing T2 driver just goes deep there, and in the end Joseph Doe will get the move done and move up to P30. But looking from outside the top 10 to immediately back in it, here's your race leaders, ladies and gentlemen. And what we haven't forgotten about the fact there's a battle of the lead starting to build, and it's Rafael Lobato for Chemical E-Motorsport T1, who is right now in what is the VRGT sandwich of Talasco in front and Reles behind. And as we start our words there, we're shell-shocking the fact that these three are keeping the pace one another, and meanwhile Alan McCain in P4 now 1 second back and not quite able to stay with the Hun. But it's going to be a potential move here for Marcello Reles. He looks up the inside, but he's too far back to go for it as he goes onto the brakes here through 9, and we jump on board. Now, what can the Argentinian do here to try and find a move? That's the question. Well, I think what he's got to do is try and work with his teammate for Talasco to potentially give Reles a bit of a tow, but it's going to have to be when they come out of the corner and Reles is able to get down the side of Lobato for a brief moment, because otherwise if Talasco pulls over to one side, Lobato's just going to follow, and in fact on the exit at turn 11, you can see that Lobato's actually the much better run, and it's going to be a Lancia versus Audi up towards turn number 1. Reles here providing the spectator position. He's got the popcorn seat view, as we like to call it. Talasco defends on the inside. Lobato looks outside. He tries to cut back, but notice how Talasco there just takes it nice and slowly off apex to make sure Lobato's got no cutback run. And in return, Reles now could close up once again through the fountain, getting ever so close to that exit wall on the left-hand side. My goodness. And as they come through 4 and up towards 5, Alan McCain now having 6 attempts this battle as they come through 5, bounced away over the curve there. It's a tiny curve, but it's so pronounced in terms of the way it unsettles the cars. And as they make the way towards turn at 6 and 7 here, Reles thinks about it again, but you can just see that Lobato right now giving it everything to stay 1 step ahead of the Pro VRGT machine, and then right behind the Prime one as they make the way into turn number 8. But this battle could really escalate at any moment as they come out of the corner. You've got the 2 iRacing esports machines, McCain and Smith behind. Meanwhile, further back, you've got James Holman here in P8. He's chasing after Andrea Romi. These two starting to mix things up as they make their way down the back straight. They've been close to one another for some time. Holman getting the better run of the corner compared to Romi. Interesting there, but the Honda really going. I think Romi's got some damage on the rear of the car, and that may explain why he's losing a little bit of speed on the straights, but it wouldn't go to explain everything. Holman really nailing it from corner to corner. As they come through turn number 11 and on to the start finish straight, they go once again. Well, Holman in the pursuit here as they make the way on down. And is he going to be able to look for it this time? Well, Romy able to get the better launch off the corner, and therefore that gap opens up to 3.5 attempts. Now it's going to close, but there's not enough straightway to be able to get this done. And as a result, they're going to have to stay as they are for now. And as Holman goes all in on the brakes here, I think sending him from that far back, unless it's the final lap, is going to be extremely risky and potentially put him out of contention. But meanwhile, looking from them, further down the order outside the top 10, here's Gavin Garner chasing after Linus Broerstrom, and Linus Broerstrom continues to excel in the Bright Esports Lancia right now. He's in P14, P16 in the Prime class. He hasn't gained any positions in class, but he has gained 3 overall, and he is keeping Gavin Garner at bay. And the bright pink machine for Next Gen Race from Douglas Motorsport just not able to find its way on through, having to wait its turn. As you can see, behind that is Daniel Holmer, and then we do have John Higgins Jr., who is still trying to gain more places. He's gained 12 since the start of this race, and now making his way in the pursuit of a potential top 10 in the Pro class after Daniel Holmer. That's his next target, to get himself into the top 10. Well, he's not got long left in this race, but even so, given the fact he's P17, he's got a reasonable chance he could have been in the reverse grid pool if a high number is drawn. But meanwhile, we look from them to Andrea Romi, and Romi's had a moment there with the wall out of turn at number 9. Meanwhile, Damon Mulqueen on the inside. Romi goes off road there in terms of the racing line, but defends into Lemon Mulqueen looking around the outside. He's going to be made to go all the way around. Romi defending hard, but I think there's been a bit of an incident for Romi that seemed to hit the barrier, and as a result now, as they make the way on down. Well, this is going to release, of course, the likes of Alex Meredith and James Holman. But meanwhile, Mulqueen looking around the outside to inside into turn number 1. Romi just trying to make the out-drag manoeuvre work here with the Audi having that top end speed. But the Elantra, of course, being strong on the brakes as they come down. When the Mulqueen has to back off there, he can't quite find it. And Dale McQueen settles for P10 for the time. But coming on out and up towards turns 2 and 3. Meanwhile, I do believe we've had a bit of an instant for Palamaniti and Adam Delmont at the turn 11 hairpin. Also, some other drivers having to go slowly on through there in response. We're not quite sure what the story is, but we'll have a replay shortly to try and explain what's happened. In fact, we immediately have a replay now. Well, this was at Palamaniti coming into the corner. So what exactly has gone on here under braking? And in the end, a bit of contact from Adam Delmont and Maniti going to the concrete barrier. Doble, Mikey Doble doing well to respond there and stop being collected in the instant. And, well, with the other Doble at Sim-Out Racing machine, all but was Joseph Doble coming on through. An unfortunate one for Delmont and Maniti. What could have been just a tap on the rear, and in the end, Maniti with damaged suspension. And it's all gone wrong for Palamaniti as he tries to make his way on around, but I think that car is going to have to be towed to the pit soon because the wheels practically falling off on the front right suspension. Meanwhile, continue to look at your live pictures. Lee Horn still battling here for P11 versus Dario Rafaeta. This is for P3 in the Prime class as well with 3 laps to go next time around. And Lee Horn keeping Rafaeta honest here, and McDougall the same, as in now McDougall's in there, and also that is Linus Brustrom. We've got 4 Prime drivers here all fighting for the Prime podium as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Next Gen Racing at Yellow 36 Honda as they make their way down towards turn number 1, where it's going to be a long run here. And the problem for Lee Horn is he has no slipstream to work with. All he's got is his quarter exit speed. And as they make their way in towards turn 1, you can see Linus Brustrom there taking a peek up the inside of Phil McDougall. Can't quite find it, but Lee Horn's gone deep into the wall he goes, and as he does, well, that's going to let Wins Rafaeta through, and so is Phil McDougall. Meanwhile, look at this from Gavin Garner. He goes 2 ways from the fountain. Brustrom gives him the space, and Gavin Garner, my good lord, you don't do that at the fountain. You never go around the outside, and Gavin Garner does exactly what you never do. My goodness, to be fair, Brustrom had to give him the space to work with. He had to be compliant, but Gavin Garner, that could have worked out so differently. That is a risk, but one that has been rewarding. As meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further back, and this is Martin Shirley, meanwhile, trying to find his way past Luke Jones in the battle for P18, and on the outside is Benatelli. Benatelli in contact with Shirley. I think Benatelli trying to make it 3 wide there, when it's only going to be 2 at best. Benatelli shed a lot of weight off of that car. He's taken off the whole rear bonnet, not the rear bonnet, the rear hood. And as they make the way through turn number 8 and in towards 9 they go. The rear boot, I should say, not the hood. Hood being an Americanism for the bonnet, if you're in the English terminology. And as they make the way down the back straight here, Martin Shirley right now being thwarted at hunting down Luke Jones. As meanwhile, you can see they're trying to make his way through his Jake Pitt, who is a lap down. But as they come through turn number 9 and into 10-11 they go. Well, meanwhile, we look back up to your leaders, as they've gone on to the penultimate lap here, and Andrea Talasco still leading, Marcello Reles behind. In fact, Reles has found the place on Rafael Lobato, and this is how the move was made. As they made their way out of the corner. Oh, goodness me. And well, as Andrea Talasco have a knock to the wall. Well, how did this all unfold there? Lobato on the inside. Reles coming on through, with Lobato being sent sideways effectively. And then behind, Alan McCain and Sam Smith having to work it out together, and Andrew Pike behind them. And well, it was McCain trying to go round the outside to inside versus Lobato. But he couldn't find it, and then they had to stay as they were. But very contentious moment there, in the fact that effectively Reles has gained from what Talasco's mistake, albeit now when he's on the back of his teammate. I think they're going to try and hold formation as much as they can, but in return Lobato will want back of that pro win as a minimum as they make their way through turns 10 and 11. Further back we can see Sam Smith here still staying behind McCain. The 2 iRacing eSports drivers working together proficiently, and Andrew Pike is like all concertina together, and I can hear a bit of grind of metal there as they come through, but everyone makes the corner this time. But next time around I can imagine somebody's going to drag their brakes through there to make sure nobody's able to make a move on the start-finish run. White flag waving, Barney flag says it's the final lap, and indeed it is. It's lap 13 of 13, and Andrew Pike is going to look up the inside at versus Smith as they head into turn number 1. The 99 Sim Racing Collective Honda goes all in on the brakes. He'll get this done. Smith not able to retaliate or counter-attack on out, but meanwhile James Holman trying to look for the move here. Alex Meredith, meanwhile, trying to get fancy, trying to make it too wide into the fountain, backs out of it before it goes wrong. And as they make their way through 2, 3, and in towards 4, well, this top 10 right now is absolutely brimming with battle potential. Meanwhile, Andrea Romi in P9 ahead of Damon Queen P10. They're also latching onto the back of this as they make their way out of turn number 5 in towards 6, 7 they go. Flash of lights there for Andrew Pike as he sees Cheverton letting him go. And as they make the way out of turn 7 and down towards 8, well, meanwhile, James Holman gets on through. Sam Smith going slowly there at turn 6. I'm not quite sure what's happened, but Smith are definitely having a moment. And meanwhile, Holman now getting compromised. They'll quarter exit with Cheverton. And this is going to be Alex Meredith looking for the move. Elbows out between the two of them as they make their way down the back straight. And well, Holman on the inside, Meredith on the outside. It's a Lancia versus Honda, and Holman's not backing out of this. Meredith's not backing out either, but I think Holman's going to make Meredith back out, and indeed he does as he squeezes them on the quarter exit. And James Holman, in classic touring car fashion, gets a move done for P6. But meanwhile, making the way to the finish line here, it's a drag race to line. But Andrea Talasco, he took the win in race number 1, and despite a late instant, he's going to make it 2 out of 2 in race number 2, overwinning the Prime class ahead of Marcello Reles and Rafa Lobato P3. Alan McCain P4 ahead of Andrew Pike P5. Runner up in the Prime class of Alex Meredith ahead of Samson P7, and it will be Andrea Romi P8 ahead of James Holman. Damon McQueen completes your top 10 with Dario Raffaetta completing the Prime podium there, P11 ahead of Phil McDougall, just missed out on the line. Lee Horn P13, and he will be guaranteed to be in the reverse grid draw. Gavin Goller P14 ahead of Linus Broström P15 there. A great drive in the Bright Esports driver. It is looking a very bright day for today, the Swede. And then Daniel Holman just behind P16, the two teammates together ahead of John Higgins Jr. Luke Jones at P18 ahead of Marco Benatelli. Martin Shelley P20, and then at P21 Paul Scott ahead of Mark Sykes, and then Mikey Doble at P23 as he crossed the line ahead of Isaac Doble, and Joseph Doble makes it a trio of Doble brothers coming across the line. P23 for the P25. James Vasquez Gal there, P26 ahead of Jonathan Collins, with Benjamin McCluskey P28, Adam Delman P29, Nick Clemens P30, and then finishing the race just now, Michael Cutler P31 as he comes on through the curvature of the start finish straight, and he'll be your final finisher on the lead lap with number drives finishing a lap down. My goodness, what a race number 2, and well, once again, VRGT able to make it a 1-2 for Andrea Talasco and Marcello Reles, both winners in the Prime and the Pro classes respectively. And I think Rafa Lobato may be fuming a little bit that he lost out effectively in the end, with the race leader making a mistake, and he was too close to capitalise on it. If anything, he was wounded as a result of it. But then behind Andrew Pike, one early instant that maybe looked at after the race, but the Sim Racing Collective driver finding a P5 and a spot just off of the podium once more in the Pro class. And Alex Meredith, runner up in the Prime class, a P6, definitely enjoying a great day here at Long Beach in the first 2 races. Also further on down the order, a great recovery drive from John Higgins Jr. finishing what was P17, and meanwhile further back down the order, enjoying the battling at Jonathan Collins, where he's gained 4 places overall and finds himself P12 in the Pro Am class. And well, with his finishing position, not quite in the reverse grid potential order, but still the NXTGEN Racing Blue driver definitely getting feisty in race number 2, and that's what we love to see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take you through those race results for our second race of the day, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And after what was another 13 laps of racing here in the city of Long Beach, Andrea Talasco making it 2 out of 2 overall and in the Prime class ahead of Marcello Reles at P2. It's a VRGT racing team at 1-2, with Reles making it the Pro win once again. Rafa Lobato at P3 there for Kemi Tour E Motorsport T1, and with that the runner-up spot in the Pro class as well. And Alan McCain round off the Pro podium there of Reles, Lobato and Alan McCain in P4 for iRacing Esports. Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective, a good drive to P5 ahead of Alex Meredith for Kemi Tour E Motorsport T1, moving one further up the podium into the P2 slot. Well, given that run of form, could he potentially be our winner in the Prime class of the final race of the day? He'll be dreaming for that, there's no doubt about it. Sam Smith falling off at the end of the race due to some damage picked up, we believe, for iRacing Esports, but finishing P7 ahead of Andrea Romi for GRT Esport, and then James Holman for RD Simsport making ground to P9, and holding off Damon McQueen coming the finish for Synergy Fortis Racing. Best of the rest, P11 there, and round off the Prime podium consists of Talasco and Meredith and Darren Raffaetta. The VRGT racing team drive having a strong performance and keeping Phil McDougall at bay for 6, our Project Black to the finish line, with Lee Horn there completing the Prime top 5 in P13 for NXTGEN Racing Yellow. Gavin Garner and Linus Broström completing your top 15, with the Bright Esports driver just outpacing his teammate of Daniel Holmer, and then John Higgins Jr. at P17 ahead of Luke Jones of JW Motorsport. As we continue our way on down there, Marco Benatelli, P19, in a heavily wounded GRT eSport car, but still brought it home inside the top 20, which is credit to him. Martin Shirley, P20 for RD Simsport, and then just outside the top 20, Paul Scott there, P21 for Next Gen Racing Blue, ahead of teammate Mark Sykes, when Mikey Doble, Isaac Doble, and Joseph Doble completed the top 25 for Doble Sim Racing. James Manskin-Gow, P26, ahead of Jonathan Collins, with Benjamin McCluskey there battling to P28, and as we continue on down the positions, Adam Delman and Nick Clearings round off your top 30, with Michael Kurtler P31 and your last finisher on the lead lap for Aztec Racing T2. Matthew Addy finishing a lap down there for Next Gen Racing Yellow, involved in the early instance which wounded a number of cars. The same for Jake Pitt and also Gabriel Yilmaz, and also Melvin Eckerson completing the run to P35, with Paolo Maniti, Reese Watt and Michael Lees find themselves in the lap down pool as well. And as we continue to the end of the top 40, Matthew Shelton finishing 2 laps down for Aztec Racing, ahead of Daniel Fritz Whiskey Runners Racing with Next Gen Racing Blue, who finished 4 laps down there. And 6 laps down for Jamie Dorey, but that will be classified as a finish there for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsports driver. And then classified as did not finish, as they finished less than half the race distance, Francisco Melo, Philip Bruberg and Bernardo Colbe. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more race to go here at the Long Beach Street Circuit. And with that in mind, you know what it's time for? It is time for the reverse grid lottery draw. And as we make our way into the commentary booth, good evening to you all live from the booth, and I hope you're all doing well and enjoying the racing so far. And to take you through the order, of course, in this lottery bowl, we have the numbers 6 through to 12. I will shortly close my eyes, shuffle the balls around, and then pull 2 out of the bowl, and those 2 numbers will be added together, and that will give us our reverse grid total. So here we go. And our first draw will be... It will be the number 9 for our first draw, so we're already looking at a relatively high number. And as I close my eyes and do the shuffle once again. And our second number of the day is going to be the number 8. So putting the 2 together, that means we have got P17 is going to be reverse grid pole. And well, my goodness, I don't think the Sim Racing Collective are going to believe this. That means that John Higgins Jr. will be on pole for the final race of the day. And he'll be joined on the front row by debutant Daniel Holmer. It's going to be a thrilling run to turn number 1. And Higgins Jr. will now know that it's a shot at redemption. Well, we'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, in approximately 5 to 7 minutes time for our final race of the day. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back for the final race of the day. Race 3 is coming up within the next 4 minutes or so, and well, what a setting we now have. Races 1 and 2 have been led from start to finish by Andrea Romi from VRGT Racing Team in the Pram class and overall, and behind him his teammate has been able to bring it on home as well. And indeed, right now it's VRGT who've made it 2 1-2s in races 1 and 2. But now going into race number 3 of the day, well, with a top 17 inversion on the grid, it does mean that John Higgins Jr. will have the ultimate opportunity for the Sim Racing Collective to try and bring it on home for victory. But the question is, will he be able to do so? And on top of that as well, who else will be able to capitalise on the grid being reversed? And could we see some near-the-knuckle moments between drivers who've been towards the front of the field all day today and now find themselves battling hard in the midst of it? Well, as we get ready to go racing for the final time, we do look to Joseph Doble and, of course, all 3 members of the Doble Sim Racing team of Mikey, Joseph and Isaac find themselves outside the top 20. They'll be starting P23 through to P25, and it does mean for them it is going to be a challenge to get themselves right into the mix in terms of battling with the faster drivers. But indeed, they may be able to capitalise on some moments. We have yet to see a safety car, of course, and not wishing it on anybody, but sometimes they say third time's the charm, and could it be for the third time of asking when we go racing that we do see a safety car, because we have had a couple of major incidents, but they've all been cleared successfully. But as we get ready to go, Rafael Lobato making its way down the start-finish straight, and saying there in the YouTube chat that starting from the middle of the pack on the street circuit, that will be quite a challenge. Indeed, we are expecting it for the 24 driver, who we started effectively P15 on the grid. He's going to have to fight his way on through, and we've seen that overtaking is highly possible here. Indeed, we've seen Gavin Gardner make it so that he can go around the outside of the fountain, but that's not the typical overtaking spot. But normally overtakes have been focused on the start finish straight and the run to turn number 1, the run into turn 6 and 7, which Lobato's just about to make his way up to, the run to turn 8, and the run down towards turn at number 9. But our drivers will find a way on through, and will their efforts may just be rewarded. And this is one of the drivers I think we need to watch out for in our final race of the day. Phil McDougall for CXR Project Black. He's been showing a lot of pace all day, albeit he has found himself just being held to top 5s in the Pram class so far. But given the inversion, he may find himself now with a little bit more room to manoeuvre. He'll be starting within the top 10 of the grid, and could we see him bring home a podium here? That will be his goal, no question about it. But as we look from here to James Holman, meanwhile, the RD Sim Sport driver will find himself started about where he finished in terms of race number 2. Given that inversion, he'll find himself just around the top 10 at the bottom end of it. So for Holman, it's all going to be about opportunities aplenty. And can he try and find a way to knock his way on through on his debut? And meanwhile, we look from him to, what is it, Matthew Addy. And for Addy in the number 1 car, of course, Pro-Am defending champion from Season 2. It's been a difficult one for the NXTGEN Racing yellow driver. I get the feeling that right now he'll be looking for a good result to end the day. But if he doesn't, this is going to be one of those ones just to pick up the pieces from and move on to the next round in Germany in a week's time at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. But it's great to see so many of you enjoying the racing from start to finish. And indeed, everybody now set in for the final race of the day. We've only got 30 seconds before we head to the grid, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't got yourself a liquid refreshment, alternatively that bowl of popcorn, if you haven't refilled it, now's the time to quickly do so. Because once we head to the grid, it's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and it's going to be non-stop to wrap up round 4 of the NXTCC Season 3 tonight. I can tell you right now, our drivers are absolutely itching, and the hype and the anticipation down the paddock is at boiling point right now. They all get excited when it's the race 3 reverse grid race, understandably so, because it means that things are mixed up. But right now, with 17 of our drivers being inverted, it does mean that we haven't got the greatest mix up, but we've got a good portion, and we head to the grid now to see how it all plays out. So as our drivers begin to line up on the grid, this is how they'll start for the final race. John Higgins Jr. will take pole position for the Sim Racing Collective, joined by Bright Esports' Daniel Holmer on the front row. Behind them will be the pair of Linus Bierstrom and Gavin Gardner, who start in the second row, with Lee Horn and Phil McDougall P5, P6. Row number 4 goes to Dorey Rafiata and Damon Mulqueen, with James Holman and Andrea Romi completing your top 10, and then it's Sam Smith and Alex Meredith who start on row number 6. On row 7, it's Andrew Pye and Alan McCain, with Rafael Lobato and Marcello Redes following up behind. And then Andrea Romi and Luke Jones on row number 9, with row 10 going to Marco Benatelli and Martin Shirley. Outside the top 20, starting P21, is Paul Scott, joined on the 11th row by fellow teammate Mark Sykes. And then Mikey Doe and Isaac Doe line up on row number 12. On row 13, it's Joseph Dolwart and James Smadsgesgal, with Smadsgesgal having some better performances so far this season in this round, with Jonathan Collins and Benjamin McCluskey P27, P28, and Adam Delman and Nick Clemens complete your top 15 rows. But the grid set, ladies and gentlemen, we head down to the front. It's time for lights out and away we go. 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final race of the day. And as Higgins Jr. gets underway, it's a slow start. But meanwhile for Daniel Holmer, it's the start he's craved as they make the way down towards turn number 1. It's going to be side by side with the Audi driver from Bright Esports here. Has got the edge. And as they make the way down towards the braking zone, Gavin Gardner also trying to go around the outside. It's going to be close to the brakes here. Higgins Jr. won't want to lose out 2 places in one corner. But I think Gardner's not going to give him a choice. Or is he as they go on through? Well, Holmer leads. But meanwhile, Gavin Gardner's still there. Higgins backs out. Meanwhile, behind Linus Brewstrom giving a tap on the rear. Higgins goes a bit deep. McDougall tucks in behind, but Linus Brewstrom then does what needs to be done and holds onto the position as they come through turn 4 into 5 and as they roar the way on through. It's a sedate start for the rest of the top 10, but as they come through 5 and into 6, 7, I think now they'll start to battle one another a little bit harder as meanwhile Andrew Pike makes his way on through. He started P13, that's where he stayed thus far as they make their way down towards turn 6 and 7, but it's a calm start and everybody survived it. But meanwhile further back, this is, I believe, Marcello Relos who's running along the wall, so I think he has had contact with always the one driver who's had it all go wrong for him as all our drivers come roaring on through the left-hander there of turn 6 and 7. But as they come through, Joseph Dole moves up to P22, makes the ground nice and early, and now trying to go hunting after what is Adam Delman in front of him as he comes down towards turn number 9. But as they roll the way through it, and meanwhile Benjamin McCluskey here battling hard and fast with Daniel Fritz. Meanwhile, they've got Gabriel Yilmaz who's made some ground. Yilmaz getting 4 places off the line, and as they make the way down towards turn number 9, it's going to be McCluskey on the left of your picture, Yilmaz on the right of your picture, Fritz just behind Yilmaz. Onto the brakes they go, and Yilmaz goes a bit deep with cold tyres and brakes, defends the inside into 10. Fritz is going to give him all the space in the world to try and cut back in, but can't quite find. In fact, Fritz being elbowed out there a little bit in terms of line he's taken, and as a result, Dorey, with that's Jamie Dorey going outside. It's all gone wrong for Dorey and Fritz, and with that you can see there Nick Clemens has to park the car up, but they all get back up to speed, albeit not a nice one, and Dorey and also with Clemens into the pit lane, and I also believe we've got a couple more others in there, including Jake Pitt and also Michael Kurtler, so it's not all been clean for everybody, but for the majority it has been. But after one lap of racing, it is what is it, Daniel Holmer who leads, but it is a safety car in fact, ladies and gentlemen, as we've just been informed. We can see that the safety car has been deployed, and we'll try to understand what exactly has led to the safety car, but it did look as though it was a relatively clear start for the front of the field, but now the momentum has been taken down. Indeed, the wind has been taken out of a number of drivers' sails, and well, this gives us an opportunity to recap the field and recap what exactly went wrong for a number of drivers on the opening lap. But as we can see here, Daniel Holmer's held on to lead after one lap of racing, ahead of Gavin Gardner, with John Higgins Jr. at P3, ahead of Linus Brewstrom at P4, and Linus Brewstrom is your prime leader at this time, ahead of Phil McDougall P5, and then Lee Horn at P6. Those guys are your top 3 prime drivers at the moment, with Dale McQueen behind P7, ahead of James Holman, Darren Fighter P9, and then Andrea Romi P10. We have Sam Smith and best of the rest in P11. So that's how your top 11 stands at the moment as they make the way on down. Safety car heading on around at the moment. I suspect we will have at least 2 laps onto the safety car, because this will give an opportunity for the drivers who've had to come into the pits to repair their cars to catch up to the field, or at least get themselves up to racing pace on the lead lap, even if they haven't quite caught up. But it also gives us an opportunity to catch up with what exactly happened on the opening lap, and I believe this replay may serve to answer some questions as the Silver tries charging down towards turn at number 1. We're focused on Michael Kurtler into the back there of a car that we can't ascertain who it is because their livery hasn't loaded properly, but that explains what happened. So Kurtler there coming in hot, and now was there contact to Kurtler's car? I don't think so. I think it may have been Kurtler who made the error as we jump on board here with Matthew Addy. And you see Kurtler there on the brakes, they all went, and will Kurtler in the air tapping the rear by the Aztec Racing Machines. That was Jake Pitt he made contact with, and Addy having to park the car up, and that's what led to it all unfolding. And as we take another look here, and this was looking back from Kurtler's car, we are going to see here coming on into the brakes, just gets it wrong on the braking, and in the end, well, the car goes sideways along. Everybody just literally parked up, as meanwhile we return to live pictures for a brief moment, still under safety car conditions at this time. And well, do we have any more information as to further incidents that did occur after that? That's the question. I believe we did have an incident involving Benjamin McCluskey and Jamie Dorey as they made the way on down. And as they made their way into the braking zone. In fact, no, this was just the aftermath, so we can see here McCluskey and company having to park their cars up. Meanwhile, everybody else in front made it on through the fountain relatively okay. As we look to Martin Shirley, everyone having to go a little bit too wide here coming on through. So it does look as though it was just Kurt getting it wrong, and that led to the rear end of the field tailing back. But meanwhile, Martin Shirley there keeping it nice and comfortable. Did everybody else make it through the fountain A-OK? And as we return to your live pictures, we still have safety car conditions, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we do try and take a look back at what happened towards the end of the lap, as we did have the incident on the final corner. And well, meanwhile, as we continue to see our drivers making the way on around it, we're still waiting for a replay to come on through. And we haven't quite got anything at the moment, but as everybody makes the way on down, I think we do have the further incident of Rafa Lobato. And this was Lobato making his way through turn number 10 into 11. And I think this was Lobato going in for a deep move there and just getting called out. And then there was the Kerry Dorey motorsport car that got taken to the wall. That was Alex Meredith there being pulled to the wall by the looks of things. Quite sure whether that was Alex Meredith or not, but I think it was him getting yoinked to the wall effectively. Yes, indeed it was. We jump aboard with the 44 driver. On the brakes he goes, went very deep there, and a bit of contact, and well, yeah, definitely on the receiving end of being given a trip to the exit wall. And well, the car, I think that was Benatelli who made the contact there. As we return to your live pictures, drivers still behind the safety car at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, but I have got word now, I believe we will be going racing come the end of the next lap, given now we have most of the field back together. So as the drivers make the way on down, they will be starting to pick up a little bit more pace now, as we are going to the safety car in soon, albeit we are now just waiting for the aforementioned restart of the race. But as we do look towards John Higgins Jr. here, P3, well, Sim Racing Collector's Drive having a poor launch off the line, but the good news for him in a way is, because the race has been neutralised, what he will be able to do is start to go on the offensive nice and early, because of course the Honda does have the ability to go quite aggressive early on. The Audi drivers, meanwhile, of Gardner and Holmer, we know Gardner's very strong in terms of restarts typically. Daniel Holman, meanwhile, we're not quite sure, of course, in terms of what he's able to accomplish on the restart. But Higgins Jr. could have an opportunity. He's able to stay nice and close in the run out of the final corners when we resume. Then we could see Higgins Jr. have the run into turn number 1, albeit he's got to get it really close in the toe versus those Audis, given how strong those Audis are down the straight. And also, Linus Brusham and Phil McDougall behind, as we have heard that Lee Horn, in fact, has dropped on down. I think Lee Horn with damage to the cars had to come into the pits. So, in fact, Brusham and McDougall now are in a two-way battle for the win in the prime class. The safety car is starting to go away, ladies and gentlemen, which means we will be going racing very shortly. And well, as they make the way in towards the final corner, Daniel Hummel will control the restart here, as we do bring up the dashboard in the bottom right corner of your screen. He'll choose where to blast it, and he's going to go immediately out the final corner. We are back racing once again. It's green flag conditions here at Long Beach. We've still got another, 10 laps to, in fact 9 laps to go, as Homer charges across the timeline, and he nails the restart as he makes his way down towards turn at number 1. And meanwhile, behind Garner and Higgins Jr. follow suit as they break the way on in. But further back, we can see Talasco, meanwhile, having a poor start by comparison. Well, in fact, not having a poor start, we should say it's Sam Smith having a poor start by comparison. So Talasco takes a little bit of a peek there, but he can't quite find the move. As meanwhile, the rest of our drivers all pushing on further down the order. The rest of the field, of course, having to make the way on the restart out of turn 10 in towards 11, and the iRacing Esports car of Clippins right now on the back of Jamie Dorey as they come down towards the braking zone here, where it's going to be battles of plenty into the braking zone for 1, but he's not going to be able to find it and has to wait his turn instead. But as they make the way on through, meanwhile, we look from them back up to the very front of the field, and Daniel Homer coming under some early pressure here from Gavin Gardner as we ride on board and look back from the bright Esports Audi. That's the face for the Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, previously the Next Gen Racing pink Audi of Gavin Gardner. That team, of course, being merged into the Next Gen Racing Douglas Motorsport outfit, given the fact they only had 1 driver into this round and onwards with the retirement from the season of Chris Daines. And as they make the way through turn number 9 into 10, Gardner right now really putting the pressure on, albeit Higgins Jr. behind. Of course, he can just wait to seize on this as they make the way through the hairpin. You can see Homer really having to dig in to defend here as all the drivers come on through, and we're hearing that Mikey Dole's been involved in an incident. We just see it to be towed into the pits. And as they make their way on down the start-finish straight, things continue as is, with Homer leading ahead of Garner and Higgins Jr. in P3. Meanwhile, further back, Sam Smith still trying to find his way past Andrea Romi with Dario Faeta then just in front. as they head down towards the braking zone once again. More Sam Smith here thinking about looking up the inside versus Romi. Can he find it? No, he can't. Indeed, he has to wait instead, as meanwhile Talasco also there waiting to pounce. Should there be a mistake from either driver, or this battle saps the pace out of them completely. But meanwhile further back we look to Paul Scott, and Paul Scott here tucked in behind Martin Shirley as they come through in turns 2, 3 and up towards 4, and we're definitely starting to see a bit of a gap open in terms of the top 16 are breaking away from the rest of the field, and Martin Shirley at the moment seems to be a little bit of a cork in the proverbial bottle as they come out of 5 and down towards 6. Pounding their way on through it. Luke Jones still looking for an opportunity to get one over Paul Scott in that battle for P6 in the Pro-Am class. And as they come through the left hand of 6, 7 and up towards 8 they go. Meanwhile, we've got a car going slow. That's Andrea Romi literally creeping along the exit wall there. I think Romi's made haste into the tyre barrier, and the GRC eSport car is wounded, and thankfully it's on the outside, and it will just gradually list its way down towards the safe zone, potentially to be towed. Everyone else is steering clear of it as they make their way into the braking zone, including Paul Scott battling with Martin Shirley. But as they make their way through 9 into 10, well, right now Scott keeping Jones there, but Jones started to get rather eager to make moves as they come through the right hand of 11. We've also got Sam Smith into the pit lane, so I think there might be a story between Smith and Romi in terms of the two of them coming together. We will try and get a replay of what exactly happened shortly, but right now, Paul Scott on the offensive versus Shirley. It's going to be Audi versus Honda, and you can see the Audi speed here, just the difference. They make their way across the timeline and down towards turn at number 1. Scott there covering the middle of the road now. Shirley thinking about coming back on the brakes, but I don't think he's got enough leverage to be able to do it. They made their way into the second half of this race, and Scott gets moved up for P15. But as they head in towards the fountain section, meanwhile we look back to Matthew Addy, and Addy here battling with Matthew Cheverton. Cheverton defends the inside on the right, your picture, Addy around the outside, and as he goes through, nice move there from Matthew Addy, looking to be on rails there. Cheverton putting up the fight, but in the end, Addy making it stick. Gabriel Yilmaz now tucked in behind on the two Aztec racing machines back exchange places shortly, as meanwhile Daniel Fritz having a very difficult run there through the fountain. Carl Lacazette didn't want to cooperate, and as he comes on through, there's a mistake from Jamie Dorey further back, as Dorey I think has had a knock through the wall. That car's suspension has gone, and for Jamie Dorey I think it may all be in tears. For the 13 driver, it has not been his day today, and it's going to be a championship lead that is going to not go his way going into the next round. But meanwhile James Vance gets in contact with the apex wall, and Lee Horn is set to the barrier, and the Aztec Racing driver there with one mistake ends up seeing one of his rivals lose out in the race, and Will Spatzkes Gale with the damage. I think he'll be conscious of the fact that he will have Pit closed up behind, and Pit will be keen to try and make a little bit of haste here. And if Spatzkes Gale's got a wounded car, they may just swap the places around. But as they head down towards turn at number 9, we do have an opportunity to find out what happened to Mikey Doble when we got the race back underway. And this was into turn number 8, rear of the car, let's go, and the rear left in particular makes contact to the wall. He tries to get the car stopped, it's rolling at that point. He does stop it and then rolls it off the racing line, but with Sam Smith, I'm not quite sure what's happened to Sam Smith, but that's what happened to Mikey Doble, and waiting to be towed to the pits as the sun comes back out here as we make our way deeper into the afternoon. And Will Spatzkes Gale under pressure from pits. We return to those live pictures. They power their way down towards turn number 1, and we do have the replay of what happened to Andrea Romi coming up shortly, which will be able to ascertain what exactly happened there. But the exchange goes, Pit up the inside, and I think the Aztec Racing drives knowing that Pit's got a bit more pace at this point, albeit there Spatzkes Gale trying to come back into 2 and saying to Pit, look, I've let you go, don't waste time, let's get a move on. But as they make their way up towards turn number 4, meanwhile we look back to the leaders, and as we can see here, Daniel Holmer still leading, albeit only 2.5 attempts, if that, between himself and Garen Garner as they come through 10 and in towards 11. Onto the brakes they'll go very shortly with their Higgins Jr. still with them, and well, it is absolutely incredible how, despite the fact those Audis absolutely salivated at their straight line speed, Higgins Jr. is able to stay with them for the most part over the lap. And I can imagine right now Garen Garner is in a very uncomfortable position in P2. He knows he's got a bit of a pace advantage versus Holmer at certain points in the lap, but the opposite in the fact that if he does fight too hard with Holmer, they could be releasing Higgins Jr. into the fight. Now as the Jr. makes his way up through the left hand and up towards the fountain section, meanwhile further behind, James Holman still tucked in behind Linus Broström with what is there the Pro-Am driver holding on to P4 and just keeping it all nice and comfortable, as Mole Queen a bit further back has fallen off for this pair. So right now Linus Broström in a nice position, and if he can hold on to that P4, it's going to be a major achievement today, albeit Holman now is going to sweep to the inside here. I think Fiddes he's got the overspeed, and Broström's not going to defend this. His battle is with Dario Rafaeta, who is 2 places back, but closing with Damon Mulqueen between the two of them. But as we see our drivers make their way down towards turn number 8, we can now see what happened to Andrea Romi on lap number 6. With that, this is the aftermath when he was just grinding along the wall. So I don't think we are going to be able to see what happened to Andrea Romi in the end. But it does look as though there for the Audi driver it all ended in tears. He just had to creep the car along, and we return to live pictures immediately, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do so, Andrea Talasco and Dorey have just exchanged places in the run up towards turn number 9. And now we do have the VRGT Racing Team Prime ahead of his teammate in the Prime class. And I think required to respect to the fact that Talasco is the faster driver out of the two of them as they head down towards turn number 1 once again. We still do have the best part of what is 4 more laps to go, ladies and gentlemen. Still plenty of time out there for more moves from our drivers. We're not over yet. And meanwhile, looking from inside the top 10 to out of it, Mark Sykes here trying to find a move on Benjamin McCluskey for P12 in the Prime class, P24 overall, as they come out to the right hand up turn at number 11 and down towards 1 they go. But as they do, no change at the moment. I think Sykes here will be very keen to try and find a way on through, given the fact he's got Matthew Addy close, and that Addy is the faster of the trio right now, the next gen crew. We try for Collins at the head of it as well, and there you can see Collins just keeping the outside line, not worrying about defending. I think he will be worried about it very shortly as they come through 1 into the fountain, and meanwhile, just clearing the fountain, Michael Lees as he heads in towards turn number 5. And on the back here of Joseph Doe and Adam Delton, we've got a long train starting to build up behind Lee Horn, who is a lap down. It's Paul Scott who's the leader of this group. As we see here, the P14 Next Gen Racing Blue Audi making its way out of turn at number 7 and down towards 8. But everyone's staying together. Delton looking for the move there versus Luke Jones. Jones not responding as Delton takes a little bit of a sneak peek. And as they make the way on down towards turn at number 9, where everybody in that tow as best they possibly can be. Pushing on here, and will there be an exchange of places? I think Jones defending hard. Delman switches it back. He gets it wrong on the dummy, and Jones is sent to the wall. And Delman just misses taking the rear of Shirley's car as well. But Delman there, a miscalculated dummy before the braking zone. And well, with that, I think now that is going to, well, it's definitely going to put Jones out of contention this race as Lees gets it wrong there on the inside of turn number 11, and will Delman be knocked about. Delman carries on. Meanwhile, in the battle for what is P5, Damon Mulqueen moves into the aforementioned position ahead of Linus Broström, with the Swede now falling back to P6, and he's got Andrea Talasco right behind him as they make their way through turn 4 and 5 very shortly. And this is the battle of the prime leaders now as they come on through in turn number 5, and now Talasco has got one more opportunity to make it 3 wins out of 3 in class as they head down towards turn number 6, and we ride on board with the with the Audi driver, and he looks up the inside immediately. Broström covers him off there by simply saying, "I'll take the racing line, thank you very much." But Talasco already impatient is the Italian, and once they make the way into turn at number 8, you can understand why. I think he feels as though here he could be on for the perfect day today as they make the way up towards turn at number 9, and well, everyone is nailing somewhere. It says on the back of the bright eSports Elantra, and right now Talasco is an absolute alien here in terms of pace compared to his peers. Looks up the inside into turn number 9, in he goes. The VRGT car goes too hot, and there's contact between him and Broström. Front bumper of a Talasco's car, and the number 39 machine with that damage. Could that be it? Could that be the wishbone that's broken now as they make the way through turn number 11, and Broström there, a beautiful line on throw, but in contact between the two of them. And Talasco now trying to come back at him. Meanwhile, Dario Rafael's caught up to the back of this as well. So it could be that the VRGT teammates just swap around once again and have another shot at making it 3 wins in class on the bounce. As they come down towards turn at number 1, it's only 2 laps to go now, including the one they're on to. And meanwhile, in the battle for the lead, we've still got a close battle between the Holmer, Garnett and Higgins Jr. We're keeping an eye on that off camera as I try to make the way through the fountain once more. Still another 2 runs on through the circuit, and well, with that, still plenty of chances for our drivers. As meanwhile, further back, we've got Matthew Addy now looking for the move versus job for Collins on P23. This is to move into P11 in the prime class, and next target, Benjamin, please. I believe it'll be Erkison will be the target for the top 10. Collins there defends on the outside to inside into the fountain. A nice defence there from Collins, and Addy definitely right now being frustrated as Sykes and Shepperton are closing on up. But as they make the way on towards turn at number 4, we look from them to a bit further back, and here is Gabriel Yilmaz having a slow run into the fountain. I think he's been elbowed out by Smazgazgal for turn number 1, and well, the Aztec Racer T2 driver's got Smith. Well, Smith will over the back of him as they come through turn number 4. Smith's not going to find his way through there. He'll be in the run to turn number 6 if he's going to make it happen. Will he be able to there? Well, Yilmaz goes a bit deep. Smith on the outside. It's going to be the pro looking to go round. Yilmaz on the inside defending hard here as they come on through. And Yilmaz will defend this all the way, contact with the wall, and Smith will get the cut back. Meanwhile, we look from them to the leaders here in the Pro class. They go on to the final lap, and it's going to be Dario Raffaello versus Linus Broström, with the fact that Telasco's backed out of this. Raffaello's on the inside, Broström on the outside, and as they head down towards turn number 1, Raffaello's on the right of your picture. It's going to be close on the brakes here, but the Honda's got the brakes. Broström's going to try and do everything he can to make it too wide to the fountain. There's contact between them. Broström just misses the tyre barrier. Meanwhile, that's Alex Meredith who hits the wall, and as they come on in, Broström defends, and look at this, look at Benatelli. There's no ifs, there's no buts. Benatelli just gets in there and he says, no, I'm not going to sit behind this anymore. My good Lord, Marco Benatelli, either way you cut it, that was absolutely daring for the pro driver. And Alex Meredith, meanwhile, tucked in behind Lobato for P11. Meredith trying to make a bit more ground after Telasco to try and get onto the podium for the final time today. Michael is inside though as they make the way out to turn 6 and 7, and well, in the end, Pike will take the place off of him. And meanwhile, at the front of the field is your leaders. Daniel Holmer comfortably ahead and Gardner behind him. So, meanwhile, looking up the inside of versus Higgins Jr. into turn number 9, it's going to be James Holman who tries to make it a last-ditch attempt for the final spot on the podium overall in the pro class. But as they come into turn number 11, well, Holman's going to have to go very deep there if he wants it. He's not going to get it, and as they drag race their way out of the final corner, Daniel Holman's going to hold off the pressure to bring on home a win for Bright Esports ahead of Gavin Garner P2, John Higgins Jr. P3, James Holman P4 at the line, and it'll be Dale McQueen P5 ahead of Linus Broström, who holds on to winning the Pro class ahead of Marco Benatelli, Dario Raffaello and Andrea Telasco. Complete your Pro finishers on the podium ahead of Rafael Lobato P10, and it will be Andrew Pike P11, best the rest of Alan McCain, and then Alex Meredith just misses out on the Pro podium, but P13 all the same ahead of Paul Scott, and then it will be Michael Lees P15 ahead of Adam Delwan P16 ahead of Martin Shirley, Joseph Dole P18, Reese Watt P19, Paolo Maniti P20, Benjamin McCluskey P21 ahead of Melvin Erkison P22, and then Matthew Addy, Matthew Cheverton and Mark Sykes for P25 ahead of Daniel Fritz, with what was Jay Pitt P27, Sam Smith P28, James Vasquez Gal in a last-ditch dash to the line, I believe P29 ahead of Jonathan Collins, with Gabriel Yilmaz P31, Michael Kurtler P32, and he will be your last finisher on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way across the timeline there. But my good Lord, what a way to end the race. And an absolutely crazy end to the race from our drivers, but in particular Linus Broström holding on to the class win in the Pro class near for Bright Esports. It was close between him and what was the VRGT team of Dario Raffaello and Andrea Telasco, but Broström not giving in, placing his car very well every step of the way. And meanwhile, in what is the Pro class, your overall winner, as you see the two Bright Esports winners together on circuit, Daniel Holmer bringing on home an absolutely brilliant win, holding off Gavin Gardner and John Higgins Jr. Aided somewhat by the safety car in terms of not having to withstand the pressure as long, but Holmer got the job done. He got the restart nailed, and whilst Gardner was close on the final lap, he was not close enough to try and make the win count. And for Holmer, it's definitely now a race that's going to absolutely raise his aspirations. Meanwhile, Gavin Garner into the pit lane, a P2 for the next gen race with Douglas Motorsport driver. He'll feel absolutely pleased as punch to be back on the podium. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our final race of the day, and well, let's take you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And after another 13 laps of racing here in race 3 of 3 in round 4 of the NXTCC Season 3, hosted on iRacing and sponsored by Douglas Motorsport, Daniel Holmer taking the win for Bright Esports both overall and in the Pro class by a 10th in the end over Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsports, Gavin Garner P2. John Higgins Jr. at P3 there for the Sim Racing Collective, wasn't quite able to bring home the win after a difficult start, left him languishing in the battle for P3, but still he stayed with the pack and indeed held off James Holman to the line, and he'll take a lot of positives from that. James Holman P4 there for RD Simsport, just missing out on the podium, wasn't quite able to get the move on the final lap, and then Damon Mulqueen completing your top 5 there overall and in the Pro class for Synergy Fortis Racing. Linus Broström taking your prime win in P6 for Bright Esports, was 3/10 clear of Marco Benatelli at the line and the GRT Esport driver P7, Dario Raffaello to P8. Ahead of his teammate for VRGT Racing Team, Andrea Telasco, and they complete your prime podium of Broström, Rafaeta and Tolasco, and then top 10 finisher and completed the top 10 at Rafael Lobato, P10 for Chemical E Motorsport T1. Best there is Andrew Pite for the Sim Racing Collective P11 ahead of Alan McCain, with Alex Meredith, Paul Scott and Michael Lees completing your top 15. And whilst Alex Meredith wasn't able to make it 3 podiums out of 3, with a third, a second, and also a P4 today, I think he and the team are going to be absolutely joyful in the fact that's a huge set of points for his piggy bank. Then Paul Scott P15 for Next Gen Racing Blue, a great drive in the final race of the day for him, ahead of Michael Lees, and then Adam Delmont P16, not quite able to finish inside the top 10 today, but still building progress. Martin Shelley P17 as Joseph Doble, and as we complete the top 20 with Reese Watt and Paolo Maniti, you had to feel for the JW Motorsport driver of Reese Watt. It just wasn't his day today. A difficult qualifying session and 3 races that just did not seem to come to him naturally. Benjamin McCluskey P21 for Next Gen Racing Yellow ahead of Melvin Eckerson, with Matthew Addy, Matthew Cheverton and Mark Sykes completing around to P25. And as we see Daniel Fritz in P26 ahead of Jake Pitt. Sam J. Swift P28 there, the iRace Esports driver having a difficult day at the office at Long Beach, ahead of James Mazquez-Gow and Jonathan Collins to complete your top 30. Gabriel Yilmaz and Michael Kurtler will complete all of your drivers who finished on the lead lap. That was 32 out of our 44 drivers, with Lee Horner the first of the drivers who finished a lap down, ahead of Isaac Doble and Mikey Doble and Luke Jones. And finishing 5 laps down with a technical error in the end, as we're to understand in the YouTube chat there for Phil McDougall. P37, 5 laps down for CXR Project Black, with Nick Clemens P38 for iRace Esports, a further lap down, 6 laps down, but will still be classified as a finisher as he completed half the race distance. And as we continue to look through, Andrea Romi P39 for GRT Esport, ahead of Marcelo Reles, and then classified as a did not finish, I do believe as not finishing half the race distance, Jamie Dorey there, P41. It was a difficult day for the Next Gen race for Douglas Motorsport driver, and indeed it will be likely that he'll lose the championship lead after this round. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our racing here today at Long Beach. And as our drivers now treat themselves to the local beach and indeed the local scenery, it does give us a brief breather and an opportunity to get ready for our post-round interviews. I'm sure there are going to be many perspectives on offer today of what has been Next Gen Racing's first run in a street circuit for the NXTCC, and we'll get to hear their thoughts on the street circuit and plenty more in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss the upcoming interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to get set for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And currently we have 2 drivers who have volunteered their time, albeit I think we've just had a third pop their name into the group. But very shortly, we're going to be hearing from John Higgins Jr. from the Sim Racing Collective in the Pro class, with number 5 driver had mixed fortunes today across all 3 races, and a qualifying session that placed him right in the middle of the field. And after hearing from him, we'll be hearing from Linus Broström, the Bright Esports driver in the Prime class, who after what was a rather moderate qualifying session, gradually made his way further through the field and capitalised on the reverse grid in the final race of the day. But we're going to start off with Higgins Jr., and as he does join me now, good evening to you, John, and well, what a way to find your way back onto the podium in race number 3 today. It took a while, but we're glad to see you back on the podium. How do you feel about Long Beach?
Yes, mate. It's a very hard track, but I'm glad to be back on the podium after the last 2 weeks of I don't think even scoring any overall points. So I'm glad that it ended the way it did.
Oh, indeed. And it was quite the journey to get back there, of course, after the difficulties you've had in the last couple of rounds. Things seem to gel a little bit more here at Long Beach, starting with the qualifying session. P16 on the grid in the end. How do you feel qualifying went?
Qualifying was all right because the track was so hot. You only really got two laps to really push the car. So on them laps I tried to push, I was tapping the wall, so I was getting off tracks or bloody 1Xs. So
So the 1X is catching out to green, also the walls, and obviously in this series we've always raced on open circuits. We've never visited a street circuit so far. For the first time the NXTCC has gone to a street circuit, has it felt a little bit alien at all? How have you had to adapt to that?
when I got crashed out in race 1, I actually enjoyed getting back to it because like one mistake you were back, or you were crashed. So it was like you always had to be on it and always hitting the same marks each lap. So one mistake was good.
Well, indeed, and with mistakes being such a high factor around here, race number 1 did look to be a difficult one for yourself. Take us through what happened from your perspective.
Well, I got a good start. I think I made up 4 positions at the fountain, and we're all just training. And I think on lap 2, someone got a bit eager into the hairpin and tried to send it where it probably isn't the best place to send it when we're all bunched up. But I spun round and I couldn't even go because all the cars were passing, so I didn't want to pull out and destroy someone else's race. So I think I was 42nd, and I was just picking my way through, and I think I finished 27th in race 1, so it wasn't too bad.
Oh, indeed, in the end, finishing just inside the top 30. And then going into race number 2, it looks like more of the same, and a number of viewers, particularly your father, commenting on as you made your way through race 2, picking up the places as you went. I take it the goal was just see how far you could cut through the field.
Yeah, well, the goal was to try and get to P15, so me and Andrew Pike could score points for the overall team championship. So, but did a few good moves, but I just couldn't catch the Audis ahead because their acceleration and stuff was just mental out the hairpin. So even if I was gaining through the rest of the track, they were pulling it back on out the hairpin. So.
Oh, indeed. And speaking about that contrast, of course, the Honda seems to have a lot of potency on the brakes, and particularly in the first half of lap around here. But once the circuit opens up, particularly that back straight, it's almost as if the Honda is just not moving compared to the Audi and also the Hyundai Elantra. Is that something you felt time and time again?
Yeah, especially in that last race when I was trying to keep up with was it Homer and Gav, I think. I'd stay with them for the lap, but as soon as he pulled onto that back straight, they were pulling 4 and 5 tenths off me. Like even off the start, they both of them took me into turn 1. The start on the Audi is just mental.
Oh, indeed. And coming on to the third race, of course, we had the reverse grid draw, which saw the number 17 that pulled out the lottery bolt. And of course, that would mean that you would take reverse grid pole position. I have to ask, what was your reaction to that?
I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe the odds. Like I think I overtook someone like a lap at the end of the last race, which is for P17. So if I had finished P18, I would have started P18 for that race. So I was sat there with Fish, the teammate, and we were just hoping for either P17 or bloody P18 to be pulled. So I'd be on the front row.
Well, indeed, it seems though miracles did happen in the end. And that start, we saw you bogged down a little bit off the line, and the Audi launched so well. And it was a short run to turn number 1, but it looked as though Gavin Gardner was trying to make it a two-way pass.
Yeah, race three was I knew Gav didn't finish that far behind me, so I knew that I'd have two Audis next to me, so I knew that I would hopefully stay next to them into turn one, but they both completely gapped me. So the plan was to just try and sit behind, see if they started fighting, and just try and pick up some decent points after the disappointing races which have happened in the past 2 weeks. So
And in the end, sitting behind them for some time, of course, the race went on with a bit of a safety car period. Did that change the way you approached the rest of the race, given the fact there'd be less tyre wear come the end of it?
yeah, because one thing that well, I struggle with the Honda is that the tires don't come on straight away, so it is a bit sketchy pushing it on the first few laps. So when the safety car got pulled, I was quite relieved, so I could spend some time warming up the tires and the brakes and stuff. So when the green flag went, I could push.
I see, and then going all in come the end of the race, battling hard with both Gardner and also Holmer, but it looked like in the end you had to do a little bit more mirror watching with James Holman coming through the pack.
Yeah, with Gav and Holmer fighting, it then backed us all up. So he had a really good pace. So he caught us all up. So I think it was the last lap, he got a run out onto the back straight into the last few corners. So I thought he was going to send on the inside, which made me made me panic a bit, but I held it off. So it was good.
Well, indeed, it was a fantastic defence from yourself to hold on to P3 to the line, and of course a return to the podium, which many have been very happy to see the Sim Racing Collective machine number 5 up there. And, well, turning around a championship campaign which has lost a bit of momentum recently. How are you feeling for the visit to Germany next week, and with it, the Nürburgring?
Just try and finish in the points every race because there's no point in finishing points in the first race, not scoring in the last. So if I can finish in the points top 15 every race, I'll be pretty happy.
Oh, indeed, and well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in Germany in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, John, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
The people at TSRC and my teammate Andrew Pike, and also my dad who sat behind me on the couch watching me.
Oh, well, that's great to indeed. The family all around you and the team all together as always. Well, it's been a pleasure, John, always to have you in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your results today, particularly the race-free podium, and we look forward to seeing you next week out on circuit.
I'll see you next week, Paul.
Have a great evening.
And you, mate.
So hearing there from John Higgins Jr., the pro driver from the Sim Racing Collective, and well, I think mixed emotions at first and a lot of pride shining through with that P3 finish come the end of the day. But what a story it has been for the number 5 driver. A qualifying session that saw him P16 on the grid, which in itself a major achievement given the closeness of the field. And indeed, we saw the top 30 separated by a second come the end of the qualifying session. So to be right in the middle of that, well, that's absolutely staggering. Race number 1 ending in difficulty, being dropped down to P42 and fighting back to P29 come the end of it, albeit with that contact at the hairpin in the early stages. And well, he never looked back since then. And indeed, as many said, driving angry in terms of looking to cut as many places as he could in each race. Race number 2, more of the same, up to P17, and then with the lottery draw of number 17, would find himself on pole for race number 3. Unfortunately, of course, with the slightly slow start compared to the Audis of what was there, the Bright Esports car of Daniel Holmer and the Next Gen Racing car of Gavin Gardner. The Audis got ahead, but Higgins Jr. never let them go, and will in the end found himself looking more and more back towards James Holman, who was encroaching fast, but still holding on to the podium. And I think this could be what he needs in order to revive that championship campaign. And we know that John Higgins Jr. has got a lot of pace out there, and he is definitely a championship contender. He just needs the results to go his way, and well, could it be at the Nürburgring we see him on the podium once again? We'll find out in a week's time. But as we come to our next interview, ladies and gentlemen, we'll very shortly be hearing from Linus Broström, the Bright Esports driver in the Prime class. I am also pleased to announce we will be having Gavin Gardner join us as of our third interview, so don't be deceived there by the fact it says we've got no driver available for our third interview. We are going to get that information updated as soon as we possibly can. But coming to our next interview, it has been a positive day for the Bright Esports driver in the fact he's been able to pull off a podium, well, not quite a podium finish, but a class top 5 and class top 10s every step of the way. And in fact, that I do believe that class P5 is in error, because he did pick up the win, of course, in the final race of the day. So these positions may be a little bit out of order, but as we do look to bring him in to the interview room, in fact, he does join me now. And as he does, Linus, welcome, and let me say firstly, congratulations on your first prime win of the season. You must be absolutely pleased with how today has concluded.
Hey man, yeah, thanks very much. Well, I don't really know what to say. Like going into this racing at Long Beach, to begin with, I hate street courses, so my main goal was to finish maybe one race if I'm lucky. Somehow I made it through all 3 races without crashing and ended up getting to start third in the final race and held on to the lead. So yeah, I had a lot more fun than I expected to, and the racing was actually a lot cleaner than I expected it to, despite having to swerve massively out of the way for a car going backwards and then turning right across the track. But yeah, I'm not going to mention any names. So overall, it was really fun, and I'm not really sure how I ended up winning in my class, but I'm going to take it, even though yeah, I still need to apologize to Andrea Torlasco there, because with like 2 laps to go coming out of the hairpin, I got a bit too deep, so I started turning the wheel and realized I was going to hit the wall, so I turned it a bit more, and then as I went to turn it back, I got my hand stuck in the wheel, so I couldn't get it turned back fast enough, so I kind of overturned the corner and hit him on exit, so that kind of helped me win the race. I don't know if he would have passed me otherwise, but still owe him a bit of an apology there, I guess.
Oh, goodness me. Well, quite the brutal scenario, but in getting your hand stuck in the steering wheel coming through the hairpin, and we know just how difficult that turn 11 hairpin is. But dissecting it all from the beginning, of course, qualifying was always going to be extremely tight with such a large field, but the top 30 separated by a second, if that. Finding yourself P24 in all of that group, how do you feel qualifying went?
Well, it went 15 minutes, is it? It went bad for 14 minutes. I couldn't really get a lap in. I made mistakes here and there, and I was in like 30 something. And then on the final lap, I went green on my delta bar, and then through every corner, it just went better and better. And then as I crossed the line, I was like 22nd or 23rd, and I ended up 24th. So I'm not really sure how I put that lap in, but I was super pleased, and I even beat my teammate Daniel Holmer, who's supposed to be half a second ahead of me. So that was, I mean, the day started great before it even begun with that qualifying, because like I said, I hate road courses, so qualifying that well was a big surprise to me, but I guess that's what set up everything else.
Oh, indeed, and from that point onwards and taking the pace from qualifying into the first race of the day, we saw you make some early ground and also steer clear of some of the danger in the opening race, and finishing P17 in the end and what would be a P6 in class. Looks as though it was a bit of a progressive race, but perhaps you felt there's a bit more out there?
Well, I just, in the middle of the pack, expecting carnage, as you always do here, so I just took it easy. Made up a couple of positions early and then made use of other people's mistake. I passed maybe 1 car in that race, I think. Maybe that's when I passed someone around the outside towards the end, or maybe that was race 2. I think that was race 1. So towards the end of that race, I got a really good pace and caught up to a couple of cars who I was able to get ahead of. So that race was more of, getting the feel of how are these guys actually racing here, how does the touring car race here, because I've never done a race here before, especially in this car, I should say. But getting the feel for everybody and who I'm around, and it's so hard to pass here. Apart from going into turn 1, you basically just gotta wait for a mistake, but just slowly and surely moving forward and getting a P17 in the end. So I was really happy with that. Then race 2, just more of the same. I gained maybe 2 positions in that overall, because I was just taking it easy, and some of the guys that went out early in the first race, I expected them to come through the field and pass me, but they never showed up, so probably because of the carnage behind me, so I was able to keep to P15 in that race as well, and still keep my teammate behind me, so I was pretty happy with that.
Oh, indeed. And a solid opening 2 races really saw you move through the field, but also keep the pace and keep the Bright Esports Elantra in at one piece. And then we saw the reverse grid draw, and it was P17, which means that you'd be starting on the second row of the grid for race number 3. I have to ask, what was your reaction to the draw?
Well, I mean, first I was a bit bummed that I didn't let Daniel go there at the end to be able to get more to the front, but I know that these guys are going to be super fast, and I was just hoping to get a clean start so we could get away from the possible carnage behind. I was 4th going through the first couple of turns, and then when the safety car got deployed, that was a bit of a relief because that took away 3 laps where I could potentially lose positions. So seeing that made me relax a little bit, and then when we went green, I just tried to go as hard as I could. I mean, and then one faster car, I'm not really sure who that was, he caught up with me. I just let him go right away. I think that was James Holman. He showed himself once, so I just moved over and let him go because I thought if I'm going to race this guy, I might get taken out. I'm going to lose a lot of time. So if I lift here, I'll lose half a second, and then I can gauge off him and maybe go a bit faster. And then Damon showed up and passed me as well. Just trying to keep up with them, and then towards the end there, Andrea Terlasco caught up to me and was trying to pass me at the end of the max straight, I think, and overshot it a bit. So we made some contact there when he bounced off the wall, and then a lap later, like I said, went through the hairpin and got stuck in the wheel. Otherwise, I think him and I would have had a really good race because he was really fast today. But ultimately managed to hold off or 6th place finish, so I'm really happy with that. You know, getting a top 10 overall is great, and then being winner of the class is even better. So I'm not going to complain.
Oh, indeed, and what a way to end the day here at Long Beach with the fact top 10s all the way through and then a class win. And it's really galvanised your championship campaign with one more round to go until we reach the mid-season break. How are you feeling now heading to the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecker in a week's time?
Yeah, I mean, with the results I've had recently, I'm pretty excited about that race. It's going to be fun to see if I can keep it up. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss at least one race or one event this season, so I've not really got any hopes of winning the Pro-Am Championship, but I'm going to do as best I can in the races that I am attending. And who knows, maybe I can get another win. But that race is going to be more about the pace of everyone because it's a bit easier to pass. But I'm expecting a pretty solid race there as well.
We do look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time in Germany. But just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Well, first of all, the team Bright Esports and all our sponsors, Oidrings, Overpower, Picked Last, and Trash Car Customs. And then, of course, congratulations to my teammate Daniel Holmer on the win, and Melvin for 3 good races. And then the guys for putting on the series, and you once again for doing the broadcast.
Well, Linus, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the interview as always, and congratulations once again on an absolutely brilliant performance from yourself today, particularly in race 3, but also the story from qualifying all the way through to the end, and we look forward to seeing you in Germany next week for round number 5.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
So hearing there from Bright Esports' Linus Broström in the Pro-Am class, and what a day it has been for him today in the fact that in qualifying, putting together a good lap, albeit not right up there in terms of the top 10 or whatnot, when it was that close, and indeed with his first foray in this car to the street circuit of Long Beach, it was all about making sure to keep it out of the wall and just keep it together. And in his own words, really just focusing on the survival first and foremost, and then the results that would come on through, and then a P17 in race 1, a P15 in race number 2, and ensuring he was eligible for that reverse grid for race number 3, to then come on through for a P6 finish, which would be Pro-Am win. Well, what a way to wrap it all off, as we see the pictures of him here being hounded by Damon Mulqueen to the end of the start-finish straight, also being smart in terms of who he chose to let through versus who he chose to battle with, and sometimes knowing who to fight is half the battle. As they made their way into turn 1, and Broström focusing more on holding on to position, albeit that pressure burn for Andrea Terlasco towards the end, and Dorey Rafaeta definitely in stark contrast, the rather peaceful start to the race, but he managed to hold it at bay all the way to the finish, albeit not without some slight incident. But as we now come to our final interview for today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll very shortly be hearing from Gavin Garner for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport in the Pro Class. And we also do need to briefly apologise and point out that some of the results you're seeing here on the screen currently, particularly class finishing positions, are inaccurate. We are going to look to get those resolved for the next broadcast. It seems as though our position calculating software has decided to throw us an error midway through, so we do apologise for that. Some of the class positions will definitely look out of order. But with that, we get set now to bring in our final interview of the day. And as we do, we get to hear his perspective on what has been some rather interesting racing, without a doubt. And well, as he gets ready to join me, we'll see what exactly his thoughts were on the Audi RS3 and its ability to blast around here at Long Beach. But as he does join me now in the interview room, good evening to you, Gavin. And well, what a day you've had of racing, in the fact qualifying the race 1 and race 2 saw you battling to be inside the top 20, and then race number 3 turning it all around to a P2 finish. It must be a bit of a day of mixed emotions.
Hey, Paul. No, it's been an interesting one. Yeah, I think I'd say it was a bit of a mixed bag, qualifying race 1, race 2, but yeah, race 3 made up for a little bit, and yeah, definitely a great result. I'm very happy with.
Oh, most definitely. And taking it from the top in terms of the racing, of course, we saw in qualifying a P17 from yourself, creeping inside the top 20, albeit it looked as though it was a gamble where anybody would qualify, given the top 30 were separated by only 1 second in the end. How did you feel your qualifying session went?
Yeah, I think it could have gone better. I think the session was maybe a bit hotter than anticipated. I think I did sort of a few laps on Sunday and of practice, and I think it was a little bit cooler. I think with the extra heat, it felt like the fronts were going off a bit more than I expected as well. So whilst usually sort of the car will sort of ramp up and up and up as you go through the session, I think it did sort of fall off towards the end. I tried to sort of back off a little bit, sort of do a few sort of cool down laps to try and get the tyres back under control, but as soon as I sort of got into turn 1, the tyres are heating up again, and then sort of I can't remember what number the turn is, but the one down the hill, the right-hander, I just ended up sort of washing out in that corner every time and losing so much time. But yeah, like you say, it was very close for everyone, and everyone seemed to be suffering a little bit. The times weren't that good compared to sort of where they were in some of the other practice sessions, so it could have gone sort of in any direction, but yeah, I didn't quite manage it in the best. Maybe shot myself in the foot a little bit by overdoing it.
Well, it may not have been the strongest qualifying session from yourself, and interesting with regards to that washout, particularly in the run down towards turn number 8. But in the race, we saw you really try to take a step forward, albeit race 1, an early incident cost you a bit dear at the hairpin, from what my memory recalls.
Yes, yeah, I think it was a bit of a racing incident in my eyes, but I'm obviously biased. It's probably maybe I'll hold my hands up to John Higgins a little bit, because I think he sort of went side by side with, I can't remember who it was, where they slowed down. I just sort of bumped the rear end of the car on his inside, who then bumped him and turned him around. And then I was just stuck nose to nose with John whilst everyone drove past, so I lost quite a few places from that. But then I think that sort of dropped me to sort of 35th place, and I think I made up quite a few places sort of before the end, so I wasn't too upset. But yeah, again, it was sort of one of those races where sort of one little incident turns it all upside down a little bit. But I mean, the car didn't have any damage, so at least I got that to be thankful for, and yeah, sort of recovered a little bit towards the end.
Indeed, and gradually recovering in race 1 and a P23 start for race number 2, we saw you make a further recovery and were absolutely charging in the Audi. And it looked like the Audi was quite strong here, particularly on the latter half of the lap where you had that back straight and also the run onto turn 1.
Yes, yeah, I think there were definitely a few places where the Audi was good. I think that I've sort of, yeah, Chris saw before Chris finished, Chris Gaines, he had a few tricks that he shared with me, especially with starting with the Audi, and I think I've got that sort of nailed down. So every start I was sort of gaining 2 or 3 positions. I think that lap 1 going up to the fountain, there was a bit of a stack up that sort of bumped a few people out of the way, and then I was sort of able to make some progress from there. But yeah, I think sort of the first few corners maybe around the fountain, the Audi struggled a bit, and the turn 1, 2, 3, 5 maybe, sort of the right-hander off camber, the Audi again seemed to struggle a little bit. But I think coming out of the hairpin, especially, the Audi was very strong. I had a little bit of top speed I was lacking from that stack up in the first lap. I think that must have given me a little bit of damage, but sort of I didn't have to worry about looking behind me. Yeah, because the Audi was strong throughout the rest of the lap to make up for it.
Oh, indeed, and with the performance of the Audi really carrying you forward in race number 2 with that P14 finish, we then saw the reverse grid draw being what was a P17, and will that place you on what was effectively the second row of the grid? How did you feel based on that outcome?
Yeah, I felt very happy. Like I said, I've sort of think the starts have been quite strong recently, and I had a good feeling that I could make up at least 2 places on the start. And I thought if things went the right way, maybe get to the first. Didn't quite make that, but yeah, that fourth position was definitely a good one to have.
Indeed, and when we went green flag racing, we saw you immediately go on the charge versus Higgins Jr. off the line. It looked as though you'd nailed the start and you were very keen to make that second place before the end of turn 1.
Yes, yeah, knowing how hard it is to overtake, I wanted to just be, make the positions as quick as I could. And then, yeah, when the sort of dust had settled, see what I could do. Yeah, John's obviously been very quick. He's had he was very good in race 3. He was challenging me the whole way. But yeah, no, I think that, like I said, it's so hard to overtake, and the Audi was just had to speed out of the hairpin that I don't think he could sort of catch up or pull alongside. I know towards the end he was getting very close, so I was looking at my mirrors a little bit more, but yeah, in the end, sort of managed to hold on to it.
Oh, indeed, and after making the move count, we saw you absolutely hounding Daniel Holmer lap after lap non-stop, but it seems as though you couldn't quite find a weakness in his armour.
No, he drove the perfect race, really. Yeah, just not quite enough sort of room to kind of try and get an overlap. Didn't quite have the speed. The slipstream wasn't quite effective enough to get anything into turn 1, and I did try. So that sort of, I think it was turn 8. You said that downhill right-hander. I sort of felt like I was a little bit faster through there, and I was trying to sort of cut it as close as I could to try and sort of get a run. But it was one of those where if I pushed too hard, I thought I might end up just hitting the wall and completely ruining everything. So I was sort of giving it maybe 90% in that corner, trying to get it done, but didn't quite have it. Like I said, Daniel just drove perfectly, and all credit to him. Deserved the win.
Indeed, a smart approach, seeing what you could take, but not quite overdoing it, because like you say, it could all end up in ruins if you pushed it too hard. And in the end, fighting for the P2, not just in terms of chasing Daniel Holmer, but keeping Higgins Jr. at bay. Although it looked as though towards the end of the race, the two of you, Holmer and yourself, were starting to break away a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit. I don't know if I think it was James Holman was just behind Higgins, and maybe he was sort of hounding him a little bit. Maybe Higgins had to go a little bit defensive. I think there was a point sort of 2 or 3 laps before coming out of turn 6, I think, where I accidentally short shifted from 4th to 5th, so I sort of ended up going very slowly, which I think let Holmer pull away a little bit, and Higgins caught up to me, and then I think when I caught back up to Daniel, Higgins maybe sort of got left behind a little bit. So yeah, might have been pulling away a little bit towards the end, but I think Higgins was there the whole way. If anything had happened, he'd have been ready to jump on it, I'm sure.
Oh, indeed, but it didn't quite work out your way in the end, but still a P2 and nothing to be upset about in the grand scheme of things. And now looking ahead to round 5 in a week's time, we head to Germany for the Nürburgring Grand Prix at Strecke circuit. How are you feeling for the final round of the first half of the season?
Yeah, looking forward to it. I think it should be. I'm not really sure if it'll be a good Audi track. It's quite a wide one, plenty of fast corners, so I think it should be fairly decent for the Audi. Obviously at home in Germany, and so yeah, I think it should be good. I think we'll see. There's a lot of quick guys in the league. I'm not really up there, I don't think, with the rest of them at the moment, but yeah, I'd like to see what I can do. Hopefully have some good races.
Well, we do hope it all works out for you in a week's time and that you get the races you're looking for. But just before we let you go, Gavin, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I think as usual, cheers to everyone at NXTGEN for setting it up, for the safety car driver, the race control, and Jamie, who does a lot of the organising. And then massive thanks to yourself for all your commentary. It's always so much fun to watch these back, and yeah, that's like 90% down to you and 10% the racing, I reckon.
Well, that's awfully kind of you to say. I'd argue it's 90% the race and 10% me, but we'll agree to disagree on that one. But with that, Gavin, it's been a pleasure to have you in the interview room. Congratulations once again on a great set of performances, particularly race number 3, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
You too.
So here and there, from our final interview of the day, the number 11 Audi RS3 driver from Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, Gavin Gardner. And well, what a day it's been for him today. A P17 qualifying session, which in the end saw him start off on a relatively good footing and looking to make progress in race number 1, but that progress would be thwarted after the incident at turn at number 11, but still finishing P23, not out of it, and then fighting to P14 in race number 2. The path was upwards, and with that he then got a further step in the path with the reverse grid that saw him start P4 in race 3, and a great launch off the line meant he was able to move into P2 ahead of Higgins Jr. and also Linus Broström come the end of turn 1, and he hounded and harassed Daniel Holmer lap after lap, even with the safety car reducing the overall length of racing laps, as we do see it here, as they were gradually warming themselves back up to go racing. But in the end, Daniel Holmer just not making any mistakes, and Gavin Gardner explaining in the end, running at about 90%, given the fact the threshold of making mistakes being so dangerous if you make contact with all the races all over, and when you're on for a P2 by default, don't spoil it. And by simply looking at it that way, I think a very smart approach means he's banked a good number of points in the final race of the day, and it does mean he goes into round number 5 in a week's time on a great amount of momentum, and we're looking to carry that forward now as we head towards the end of the first half of the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And you've just heard from Gavin Gardner for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport in the Pro class. But before we heard from the number 11 driver, we also heard from the number 71 in the Pro class of Linus Broström from Bright Esports. And our first interview, of course, was the number 5 of John Higgins Jr. for the Sim Racing Collective in the Pro class. Congratulations to all 3 of them for their performances today, from the qualifying through to race number 3. And thank you to all of them for joining me in the interview room. And indeed, we look forward to hearing the perspectives of other drivers come the conclusion of next week's racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's broadcast and you want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future rendition of the NXTCC, or you'd like to know more about the leagues we run, from say our fixed Formula FF1600 series through to our front wheel drive Fridays Clio Cup series, or perhaps the upcoming GT3 League, alternatively the Proto GT3 League, where you can find out all about that and more, and also what we do on both the virtual and real motorsporting circuit as racing drivers and marshals. You can find it all out and our official website, and that is at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And as the website does briefly appear on screen now, you can see the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. We have been hosting leagues for over 16.5 years on PC and console, and we've gone from strength to strength year in, year out, and we've got plenty more to come as this year goes on. And in particular, if you're looking forward to those GT3 championships and those Proto GT3 championships, they're due to get underway in the next couple of months come the summer. Keep your eyes out for the end of June 2023. But if you don't want to go to our website necessarily, you can of course instead go to our official Facebook group, and that may be found at www.facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing, where you can find all the latest information as well, and you can follow us on social media there. We'd also like to take a brief moment to say thank you to our sponsors for this series, of course Douglas Motorsport, their website www.douglasmotorsport.com, whereby they are a leading race team in driver development which aims to give drivers a path of progression to LMP3 class racing, from karts to Ginetta Junior and Ginetta GT4, alternatively via British Formula 3. And if you'd like to know more about the team, who are specialists in British Formula 3 and Ginetta Cup racing, please do head to their website. But of course now, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers will head their way to Germany for round number 5 of 10, and it'll be the conclusion of the first half of the season before we go into the mid-season break, and it'll be at the Nürburgring Grand Prix loop. Albeit we're going to be running the shorter version of the loop, but whilst it may be short, it will be sweet in the fact we'll have plenty of battling in Germany, and who will be able to carry the momentum through and complete the first half of the season on a high. We'll find out all that and more on Tuesday the 16th of May in a week's time, but until then, we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media follow me on, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.